of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing as the Honorable Trustee King gives the invocation.
Almighty God, we acknowledge that you will hold us to account for the way we legislate and administer the affairs of our township and its fine people. We pray for your guidance as we do so. We pray that you will find us protecting the rights of all at all times, that our community and this nation will fulfill all of your purposes. Amen.
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 Make sure your mics are down so everybody can get your voice, everybody. All right. Clerk Christie, please take the roll.
Mrs. Kavanaugh.
Here.
Mr. Christie here. Ms. Jackson.
Here.
Ms. Kennedy is absent. Mr. King.
Here.
Ms. Taylor.
Here.
Mr. McCray.
Here, quorum is present. Okay, next is approval of the agenda.
To the chair,
Trustee Taylor,
I move that we approve the agenda.
Support.
supported by Treasurer Kavanaugh. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I have one citizen comment, and that's Mr. Reese. Wherever he is. Should it be now or? Yep.
Oh, no, this is, he wants to talk about marijuana.
Okay, all right, well, okay, yes. So I just want to let everybody know that if you hear about the marijuana stuff, that everybody will have an opportunity to speak. And that'll be after the board has their comments, then you'll have an opportunity. Everybody gets 3 minutes. So when we get to that, nobody has to worry about not having a voice here tonight. So, all right, so then we'll move right along. Next, we have the public hearing. So, Mr. Dennis, and then we will also need a motion to go into the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman.
Clerk
I move-
Christie.
I move to open the public hearing.
Support.
Supported by Treasurer Kavanaugh. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Mr. Dennis, you are aye.
Mr. Supervisor, Honorable Board, good evening. What I want to do is meet with the board for our project plan amendment that we are proposing tonight for the CSO Basin Central, that we're calling it, that will be located at Roosevelt, the vacant Roosevelt school site. Back on May 24th of 22, this board met to approve a project plan for submittal to the state for the state revolving fund. That was in regards to the CSO basin that Redford Township must construct. I also have with us tonight Kelly Acklin, Steve Kalinowski, and Mark Preback from Wade Trim, and they'll be jumping in on this presentation as well. What we're doing tonight is go over just a few things in regards to our project plan. We do not need to have board action tonight, as the board already took action back in 2022. This is in regards to since we now have a defined site since last year. We had to change a plan due to that. Since the design has changed a little now, since we have moved it from a proposed site to the Roosevelt site. We're going to talk a little bit about the project cost and estimate right now. What I want to do is open this, and I'm obviously not sure if it's ready to go. Kelly, are we ready to rock and roll on this? Might as well ask you, since it was yours. Okay, all right, that's not it there. So give us one. So I guess we can do, until it pops up on the screen, is there is a handout for the board to look at. We're going to go just through these pages quickly with everyone. Okay. We also did do a mailing to the area around the project site in Aubrey and Lanane Street I think it was Garfield, in regards to the area within 300 feet. We didn't, we followed the planning commission guidelines that we normally do, just to alert the neighbors in that area. So again, this project, we are mandated through the state, through our MPDES permit, We are going to be, we have applied and received, we're applying for a state revolving fund loan. Part of this process at the time, we were awarded a $20 million loan forgiveness through Eagle. That is the maximum award that Eagle will provide anyone for our project. When we first started to work on this, we had time. And then when we were allocated these funds in late August, early September, Eagle said, you either start doing this project now, or else you're not going to get these funds. So we had to then escalate the design project from roughly 18 months to 7 months. And I want to commend Kelly, Steve, and Mark and their team at Wade Trim because they have done a tremendous job to this point about getting us to this time for a design for this project. When we moved it to Roosevelt, we had to have a little bit bigger of a basin. There was your redesign of some of the outfalls, the piping. Again, there are 6 outfalls that are connected to our central region of Redford. And these outfalls, and there's a map that we'll be getting to next, will then have new sewer lines, new collector pipes that will go to the CSO when we have an outfall issue due to rain. Our sewers are combined with sanitary and our storm. So that's where we come into issues when we get a large storm event. We have, like as I said before, in the bottom page 1, since we did have to change our location, then we had to then alter what we're doing with the site, the building, estimated construction costs, and estimated user fee revision. I wanted to then talk in page 2, or it's the 3rd page on your handout, it's not up there. This is again the map that you've probably seen about 10 times in regards to the overflow system that Redford has. Again, 1999, Redford took care of the 2 outfalls that we had, the 3, excuse me, and those go to the outfall of our CSO basin at Glenhurst Golf Course. These 6 will in turn be directed toward the Roosevelt site. And then we still have 2 more outfalls that we'll be working on our south CSO basin. So that's still in play, but we won't be doing anything of that till about 2029. There are a couple pictures for you. Oh, I'm sorry. And then also here's the map that I just discussed regarding the 6 CSO basins. You're going to have them starting up near Bell Creek Park on Meadowbrook, working its way through down Fox, then Kinloch, going across Graham, and then feeding into the basin. You have Meadowbrook on the far west, which will feed going back up, crossing the golf course, going down Fox, coming up. Down CSO 42, you see it's down by Ross and Beach. That'll feed all the way up, going east, northeast, till it hits Sarasota at 44, and then come back up, and then come back around. So 42 is gonna lead to 44, 43, and then back to CSO. We will also be obtaining 2 easements from Western Golf and Country Club. One that's up near 5 Mile, and one that will lead from the CSO around the 13th hole that will feed down into the river. So that is something that we are currently working on. There are a few photos that we just wanted to show you. These are some renderings.
Okay, Mike, so I'm looking at the Central CSO Control Plan Amendment that shows all the, 41, 39 through 44.
Yes, those are the 6.
So the yellow is what?
That is going to be all of the new collector sewer being installed.
Okay, so that's a sewer system that's going in.
That's a sewer system that will be installed.
Okay.
See from 41, it's coming up on the bottom left there.
Yep.
And then it's going to cut across the golf course. That's a easement that we will obtain from Western.
Okay.
And then the CSO 40 will feed down and go across. 39 is just going to run right down Meadowbrook Street there and come all the way down Fox till it hits right at the end of Fox and go back up, and then that's going to come around Graham all the way to the CSO.
Okay.
And then 42, 43, 44 will go up and come back around.
Okay, so I just want to make sure the yellow line is what I
Yep.
thought it was.
All
Okay.
new sewer line.
All right, thank you.
No problem. All right, we'll just flip to these next two pages, and then I know Kelly and Steve and Mark will be jumping in.
Okay.
So we do have a couple photos for you, renderings. They are very nice. You can see an overhead here on the site. This is an overhead looking from the east over, and then also from the south. You can see it's a nice brick building with the roofs. There's an outer area that will have a generator for use as needed, and there will be parking on the west side. And there'll also be a drive all the way around for just in case we had to get access to the east side or the south side of it. There are some more close-ups on the next page, which gives you a little better look of the building itself. It will be a brick building. It's all underground. No, you don't. I know. I do have a couple extras. So for any folks that live in the area, there you go. Here, I have a couple others. Anybody else in the area that? Well, I did bring about 8 just in case. Oh, no. Hey, we're getting close.
Something.
Getting close.
I don't know if Brian is able to help us out at all with the sound, but all right. So you see a couple renderings. I'm currently on page. I think I'm on page 6 currently. It's the second rendering page.
Yep.
So yeah, this just gives a little layout for you. It's all brick. We're using a flat roof. I got some outside doors, parking. It's a underground gift facility, and it's going to look very nice when we're done. Very similar to the one at the Glenners, but it'll be a little more modern, looking into today's facades. Now Kelly and Mark and Steve, as needed, are going to pop up, and Kelly's going to go through. We're going to talk right now about the plan amendment for the construction cost. So Kelly, if you want to go in there.
Thanks very much, Mike. Mr. Supervisor, Honorable Board, I just want to continue along with the conversation, and the scope of tonight is to just discuss, I apologize, is that better? I'll speak a little closer. Is to speak to the amendment items specifically in the change in scope from when we originally presented in May of 2022. With the changes that Mike has gone through, there is an estimate increase for the construction cost estimate. And unfortunately it's not on there, but the overall estimate subtotal is just over $65 million for the Central Basin, and at this point we are still recommending inclusion of contingency of 20%. And these are the numbers right now that are being presented to Eagle for consideration of increasing the funding amount that they are permitting under the grant, or not the grant, but under the SRF funding mechanism, so the low interest rate portion. And some of the reasoning behind the increase in the cost estimate from the original ones discussed in 22 is we've progressed with the design. So that allows us to look at mechanisms a little clearer, more in depth, and to estimate accordingly instead of a planning level estimate. We've also had significant and recent market price inflationary items that I know every one of us are dealing with in some manner. The change in location led to an increase in the storage volume for the basin. We've had to make it deeper and larger to store more of the water that needs to be treated before outflow. And because of the increase in flow, the diameter of those pipes, illustrated as the yellow line, they've had to increase as well. So all of those items have contributed to the increase in cost. What comes as next would be the user cost, so the payback period for the loan. We've approached Eagle in requesting a payback period of 30 years to extend and minimize, or to lower the payback. The estimated cost of $78.1 million with less the $20 million loan forgiveness leads to a $58.1 million interest loan. And with that loan at a 2% interest rate, that's the rate being offered by Eagle at this point, which, I'm understanding for comparative measures, a representative right now, our average would be about a 4.5%. So it is significantly lower. The annual repayment amount is estimated to be approximately $2.58 million. The total repayment over the maturity is approximately $77.6 million. And that equates with using the annual, or the number of sewer units per year that are built annually is roughly 1.4 million. And when you divide that by the annual cost of the repayment, that equates to roughly $1.864 per unit per year. And broken down further, it equates to 0.155 per unit per month. So depending on the number of units that are utilized with water consumption, that is what would be billed to the consumers. And then finally, it's touching on the expedited schedule that we'd have to adhere to. The township in early or late December entered into essentially a milestone agreement with Eagle. So there are dates in the agreement that we have to adhere to in order to meet the financing schedule and ultimately be able to take advantage or utilize the $20 million principal loan forgiveness amount. Right now, this week, is our first, one of our first very important dates, and that's the submittal of our preliminary plans and specifications, and that's to happen this week. We have approval of plans and specs by Eagle, an advertisement of bid projected in May, bid opening in July, recommendation of bid award July this year, issuance of notice to proceed in October, and full construction completion is outlined in actually the NPDS permit that Redford has with Eagle for compliance. And that's ultimately what's required to be completed. And that takes us to December of 2027 for completion date for permitting approval and in order to meet that compliance schedule. Those are, I think we've addressed all of the amendments. Those are the major changes. Again, we're just emphasizing the central basin at this point. The South Basin remains part of the original project plan that was submitted to Eagle, but we're only requesting funding for the one in front of us right now, and that being the Central. If there's any questions, turn back to Nate.
I also just wanted to add, thank you, Kelly, that in regards to the milestone schedule that Kelly was referring to, we have a very detailed schedule, if you can see it. This is what Eagle provided to us. And they even highlighted in yellow the ones that are very important to them. And so they don't give a lot of movement on what they're expecting from us. And we got a little bit of room from them. We asked for a couple dates to be changed, and they were nice enough to change them, but they left everything in yellow that they were not going to change. So again, we've already met with Wayne County. We did have a meeting with Wayne County about a month ago. They are well aware of what we're doing. We had a very good meeting with them, with roads, drains, all of their public works crew, Wade Trim and ourselves. And it was a very, very good meeting in regards to what we expect from them. And then we've also meeting with Eagle. So this is a very fast-tracked project. Again, I appreciate the board helping us out with this. It's not something that we have a choice at this time. But it's going to take a few years to build. Again, like Kelly stated, we're turning in paperwork on Friday that is required to the state. So, and again, the draft, it just had a few changes to it from what the board approved in 2022. So, other than that, that's what we had to offer tonight.
Okay.
Any questions?
Questions from the board?
To the chair.
Trustee Jackson.
It's not exactly a question, but it's something I'd like for our residents to know. This is a very, very expensive project, and we are still turning over rocks with all of our elected officials. Any place that we may be able to get some additional funding for that, because it is a heavy burden for our residents to bear. And we totally understand that. We do feel that the state should have more funding available to us for this. They're requiring us to build it, and it's what's called an unfunded mandate. It's like you have to do this, and then you have to figure out how to pay for it. So we are still working on grants. We don't know what's going to happen with the infrastructure money that's out there, but we are trying to get every single dollar we can get from every place so that we can reduce the cost of this to the township.
Okay, and I just want to say that those of you that may have heard me talk about this at different times, I was under the impression that this was a community kind of thing. We were taking water from Livonia and everything, and that they should share that cost. Well, as of late, I found out it's not the case. This is a totally Redford Township project. So any dollars that we get will help us out, and we will apply for or try to get whatever grants are available, no matter how big or small, that we will do whatever we need to do to try to reduce the cost. But this is a non-funded mandate, and this is a project, Mike, when they started off, it was years ago, when they were talking about the giant sewer pipe that they were gonna drive a truck through.
There was
Correct?
tunnel that they were going to be doing. Yes.
Yeah, so.
East of us.
So this project's been talked about for a long time. Our community is very unusual that we have to have 3 CSO basins. Most communities don't even have 1. So please be patient with us, because we all live here. We want to reduce the cost to everybody, including ourselves, as best we can. So we continue to look for funding and to keep the residents abreast of what's going on as we do that.
To the chair.
Oh, Treasurer Kavanaugh.
Oh, just a quick question. What's the square footage of the building above ground?
Don't tell my head.
About
Roughly.
30,000? Approximately 30,000, I think it is,
Okay.
roughly.
30,000.
Ballpark. It's just because it's been moving around a little
Okay.
bit
Yeah.
with the rooms and things of that nature.
That's
So
fine.
it's
I just-
kind of roughly, yeah.
Okay.
But it'd be a little bit less than that, but yeah. But
Okay.
yeah, when we come back for final design and everything.
Okay, no, I just wanted roughly, okay,
Oh.
thank you, that's it.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Trustee
Mike,
Taylor.
could you explain why Redford, being such a small community, needs 3 where some communities don't need any?
Well, since we are a urban ring community that was built in the 50s, Redford was designed to we have sanitary lines and storm sewer lines. Communities built after us, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this, have separated lines. I'm sorry, excuse me, I said it backwards. We have one system, and we have sanitary, and they feed into our CSO, into one line. Other communities, they're already split out. That's how they were designed. They were, designed later than us.
So you're saying that other communities have separate sanitary lines and stormwater lines. Ours uses one line for both
No,
sanitary and...
we have sanitary separate. It's where they go to. They have separated systems. So in regards to we have Redford maintains our sanitary lines, okay? We have separate storm lines also, all right? But it's where how they go, how they follow through. I'll let you explain a little better. Engineering.
There are combined areas, and the township is broken up into 3 separate districts. In the one drawing there was the north, the central, and the south. And so each of those districts are designed, or were originally designed to collect all of the water, not water, the sanitary and the storm in those districts. And so collecting them all and treating them in each of the separate districts is what's leading to the 3 separate. Otherwise, you would have to convey the flow from the entire township down to one basin, which would, you'd have entire sewer that would have to convey all that flow, and then a significantly large size structure, times 3 from basically what you have now. So it's in alignment with the existing conditions and the existing sections of the township, if that's helpful.
I have to wrap my head around it,
No,
because I
no.
still can't picture that. I don't see how Redford is, when you say since the 50s, we've been here obviously a lot longer than that, and so is like Livonia, Detroit. So does Livonia operate on CSOs as well?
They have a small SSO. Yeah, they have a cross,
What's a CSO
Yeah.
versus an SSO?
Yeah.
combined sewer overflow, and SSO is a sanitary sewer overflow. They have a smaller unit the other side of Inkster Road, and almost to.
Oh, the one there by Linden?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. So there's some small, units that have different usage, but since that we have so many, creeks, tributaries that go through Redford, that's how it was designed back from the 1900s to the 1950s, was with the outfalls and overflows. That's how it was designed. So when Livonia was kind of then planned out in the 60s, I guess you could say, late 50s to 60s, yes. So that's just how this community was developed, and the other community, et cetera, et cetera. So, but yeah, they have an SSO, and they're part of our CSO in the north just because of the creek, just because there was an outfall. And they're on a permit just for the north one.
So why did the state just now decide that we had to make this change now? Is this new regulations that?
This has been going on for 20 years.
20 years?
Yes.
Okay.
They're going to do a project with Dearborn Heights and Detroit that got canceled. They were doing a tunnel project that was running through Detroit. Then they decided they couldn't do it. They just then filled in the tunnel. There was a different project.
This is Eagle when you say they?
Well,
Or the state?
it was the state that I mean, we were doing the tunnel project with Detroit, Dearborn Heights, if I recall. That was before my time, and Redford. And then we were trying to do a project with Dearborn Heights. That fell apart years ago. And then probably 2013 or 14, started looking at some other, what else we have to do. Putting it off a little bit. Times were tough. Eagle kind of allowed it to push down the road, and now, they don't want it. It has to start going. So it's on our backs to get this done now. So.
To the chair.
Treasurer Gammon.
I thought of a little bit more. Just really quickly, will this help with main breaks or the pressure that sometimes Detroit releases to us?
No, this has nothing to do with
Different,
water
okay.
mains. It's just all the drainage.
Tributaries, okay.
Drainage. and that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Other questions from the board? Okay, hearing no other questions from the board, and in an orderly fashion, if you can, go on this side of the room and line up if you have any questions about this, because this is the time for public comment. And rather than me picking somebody, just kind of line up over on this side of the room, and that would be great. Okay.
I just have a question. Why do we have to do it? Just because the state mandates it, why do we have to do it?
Okay. Okay.
Because we have to keep our rivers clean. We have these outfalls that when we get a large event, the stormwater and your sanitary are draining into the rivers, and we don't want that. And so Eagle is finally saying, hey, you guys got to take care of this. They've been kind of wanting, and so we have to do this now. But it's because when we have a large event, that's where all the outfalls, the drains get full, and the outfalls, then it has to go to there, and that's what's going to our rivers.
Gabriel Reese, 25388 Graham. I guess mine's more of a request. I live right by Roosevelt Park as well. I get why the CSO Basin should go there. It just makes sense. I'm sad for the DDA because I think could have been a really cool asset long-term for outdoor sports, things like that. My one request, if this is possible, there's a giant parking lot connected to the bus depot. It's never utilized. It just sits there. If there's any way to move the CSO Basin closer to that and use that easement as one of the in or out areas, just because I think it's sad to lose 100% of that green space, looking at most of it being parking lot and in and out on two corners. It just seems like if there's some way to collaborate with that transportation thing to minimize the footprint as a resident of that area. I appreciate it.
On that site, when the building was torn down in 2012-13, the agreement was Redford Union has that as an easement for access. That is their bus access in and out. So we can't do anything with that parking lot at this time.
You can't share it for like a...
No. And the reason it's off the roadway on the south is because we need a zone around the building to construct this. So we're hoping to be a little closer to the south side but there's going to be a large, be cranes and, construction, vehicles there, et cetera, staging. So that's why it's a little bit further to the north, I guess, say by an extra, 30 feet roughly, 30, 40 feet. But that's why the easement, we can't, because we're trying to keep it as far away south, so there was more green space to the north. If we go further back, that doesn't do anything for us because we want to try to south so we could, if we put a playscape there or a park or we're allowed to do some sort of housing, if there ever, was a deal, by the township, obviously I used to wear that hat. And if there was something that could be done with that parking lot and that house, and we already own the lot on the north, so on 5 Mile, then, you could, work that whole thing. But, so we want to stay as far south as possible.
Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, and I just want to say that, and everybody doesn't have these pictures, but Mike, the building goes up, the green space around it, it's not like people can't go over there and.
Oh, no.
And right, so you're not it's not all gone away, because it looks like probably half of it is underground, right?
The building's the only part that.
Yeah, the building's the only part,
Everything's
but everything else is underground.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be a big cement thing. It's,
No, you're not gonna see
there's green
anything.
spaces available to still use.
Okay.
So you're not going to lose all of it. The only thing you're going to see
It's
is
gonna
the
be green
building.
space.
The building.
And there'll be a parking lot around it, it's a roadway on the east and the north. There'll be parking on the west and a roadway, the driveway's gonna come off Aubrey on the west side.
So, okay, who's next?
Hi, the question is
Okay,
about,
what's name and address if you would,
oh, sorry, 25010 Graham.
and your name?
Rick Skrbina,
Okay, Rick?
yes. So the question about the new sewer lines that will be installed, will the roads become impassable during the construction, or how is that going to work?
Yes. Yeah, well, so how are residents going to be able to get in and out to properties during construction?
The lines are gonna go between the roadway, the sewers are between Western and the roadways, most of them. So, and then there might be some here, I'll let you go there. Some construction in regards to that, if Mark and Steve want to add anything, or Kelly, but, yeah, a lot of the work is gonna be on the bridle path area, I guess you could say. There'll probably be some but the roads, will be open, just like you're doing a water main project.
If I could just add, there will be disruption. I mean, these are big sewers coming in. They're ranging in size from, I think, 54 up to 78-inch diameter. So these are large sewers, not your typical 12-inch that you would be used to from a storm sewer perspective. We're working with Wayne County in terms of the road restoration and what their expectations will be and how they will be restored. But there will be traffic detour plans if closures are necessary. There's also intent to have, temporary, thank you, temporary. Closer to the time, once a contractor is selected, to have public information meeting to address those types of concerns and questions closer to the time of construction. Hopefully that's helpful.
So I guess I want to, the public information meetings are going to be where? I mean, right, they're going to be here?
We were just talking about this about, 2 weeks ago, that
Okay.
once we get a better idea, once through the bidding, we're gonna hold like a pre-con town hall here for all the affected areas. We'll do a
Okay.
mass mailing from Bell Creek and Meadowbrook all the way down to Graham and Sarasota for affected routes.
Okay.
Meadowbrook, Fox, Kinloch, Graham, et cetera, and let all of them know what we're looking at to do. This would be the plan. We came with the idea, very similar when they did your work on the freeway.
Okay.
Just have a town hall, invite everybody there, and then let them know, hey, this is what we're going to be doing. This is and that's why it was nice that we were able to invite some of the folks here tonight, and then that affects a good part of the area right around it, and then
Okay.
we'll invite other folks going down Graham and
All right.
Fox.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Sir?
Hi, my name's Cliff Landau, 25356 Graham. The question I have is about the sewer lines that are going in. Currently, every time it floods, my neighbors and mine basements flood.
Okay.
And I'm wondering what's going to be done to improve the sewer line. so that that doesn't happen anymore. I mean, this is something that should have been done decades ago
Okay,
to fix this.
so,
I don't know if I'm going to have a follow-up.
okay, well then hang out there, you don't have to leave, it's fine, it's fine.
If you're having issues with storm or sanitary backup, then I would contact the water department.
I have.
Okay, well, I would then follow up with them, then you have to look further into it. But this is for the collector sewers. It will have minimal in regards to what's happening on your house.
How are the collector sewers ever going to collect all that water that's down there? You guys know how much water's down there?
Okay, well-
With floods?
Okay,
It's a lake.
okay,
It turns
well,
into a
come up to
lake.
Mike, because, sir, come to the mic, because other people are maybe watching and may have the same question as you.
All right.
Go ahead.
It's just that there's a lot of water down there.
I understand.
You know what I'm talking about between Lenane and,
Yep.
whatchamacallit? I can't think of the street now. But anyways, it turns into a lake.
Sure.
The course floods, the road floods, and the water comes up into our basements. I didn't get any in the last one 2 weeks ago, but my other neighbor next door did.
Okay, so I guess if for this particular meeting, the question is that when.
Is this going to be correct? Is this going to correct?
Is doing this going to have any effect on homes that may be having these issues? That's, I guess, what you want to know, correct?
Right.
Okay.
No,
yeah.
this has nothing to do with collecting water from Lenane and Graham is the lowest point in Redford Township. So when you get a very large rain, that's just how Redford is, that's the lowest point of Redford,
Right.
so that floods. This has nothing to do with taking that water out. This is collecting sewer from all the outfalls connecting, but when you have a large rain like we had 2 weeks ago, when the creek just goes up because there's no place for that, we had so much rain and 2 inches rain, that's going to happen because it's been happening for 100, 200 years. Well, I'm just saying that this will have nothing to do with that
That's not-
flooding an area. Yeah.
So, and the answer is.
That's a storm event.
Doing this is not going to correct your problem.
Isn't there storm drains? They're supposed to drain the water off? Because it happens when there's storms.
And
Okay.
yes, but
Well, water
that's a topic for another day.
Okay, I guess, sir, that the
I can talk to
answer to the question is, doing this is not going to fix your problem you're having. And, well, it's not. I mean, that's the truth. That's the answer. Now, what can be done about fixing your problem, I'm not sure, but I'm sure we can look at that.
Yeah.
But this is about the CSO, and it's a valid question if you live there, if this is going to happen, is it going to help with your problem? And the answer is no, it's not.
Great.
Well, but we still have a problem and we can look into and
It's the
address.
same thing, because the water goes through the same pipe.
Well, yeah, but sir.
then it comes up.
okay. So you gave your name and address.
I'll talk to Mom.
Mr. Dennis is here, who's the head of the department, and we can look in to see if we can help you with your problem. But the answer for everybody is no, the CSO isn't going to fix any problem in your basement if you have to live in that area. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. Anything else?
What problem is it fixing?
It's fixing the combined storm and sanitary. We have a storm event going into the river, so our rivers will be clean instead of polluted.
Raw sewage. The stuff
Raw
that's,
sewage is going in the river?
well, if there's an overflow, it is.
Yeah.
That's what we're
That's what
trying to
we're doing.
prevent.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Our system is you combined. Yeah.
Because it looks like it's all storm water down there.
Well, I'm glad it's not looking like something else. I mean, and I'm sure you are too. So, yes, but that's the purpose of this, is to make sure. Okay. All right. I think we have somebody else. Okay.
No, I've seen people.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Pull it down so feel free to adjust so you can be heard. Name and address.
Susan Wilkie.
Yep.
And I live at 25146 Graham Road.
Okay.
And my question is, are you going to have a limited time? I mean, I know on the freeways, you guys can work 24/7. Is there going to be quiet time restrictions? And is this going to be, how long is this project going to go?
Okay. So, okay, go ahead. Because we should have at least an idea.
Put my glasses
Pull
on.
them up.
This project will start in the
Mike.
fall.
Pull them up. Yes, thank
Project
you.
will start in the fall, October, and we're hoping to have it completed within 3 years. And our ordinance states that they can start working at, 7 a.m. Till dusk, so dark. I mean, it's actually 10, but I don't think anybody's going to work till 10 o'clock. But I suspect, during the summer, they'll work longer than they will in the wintertime. So, but we do have an ordinance on that.
And it will be a 7-day-a-week project?
I think we'll state 5, but if they have to work overtime, that'll be up to the contractor.
Well, okay, I just wanted, so people can be aware it may be more than Monday to Friday.
If there's delays,
Right.
yeah, there could be a Saturday. I don't know too many contractors work on Sunday. Yeah.
Right, I understand, but it's a possibility. I don't want anybody to go, hey, why are they doing this, right?
To the chair, just to clarify, you said it'll finish October of 2027. When are you expecting to actually break ground?
October. Well, our
this
plan is the bids coming back, and we're just going to get the contractor awarded and start as soon as possible. It obviously depends, contracting, awards, state, but our plan is right now to start in the fall.
So you'll be able to break ground before winter. I don't imagine you get too much done before the snow flies.
I don't think they're going to stop. They're going to keep doing as much technology.
Yeah.
There are certain segments particularly that are impacted to the golf course that we'd like to try to do through the winter months to minimize the impact to the golf course. So there are certain areas that we're very cognizant in trying to provide some type of a schedule to minimize that impact to the various locations and areas.
Okay.
Yeah, just to add, the golf course is very adamant about us doing work in their course in the wintertime. Yes.
Makes sense.
So, yeah.
Oh, well. Yes, sir. Name and address, please.
Rick Louisenaw, 18356 Lexington. My question is once you start tearing up the roads, how long will the roads be torn up?
The final construction duration and schedule will be worked through with the contractor, but we will not be tearing up all of the roads at once. It'll be phased. So certain segments will be open, the sewer put in, road put back, then continue along for the next section.
Okay. Any other public comments on this CSO? Any more comments from the board? Then I guess a motion to close the meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move to close the public hearing.
Public hearing. Is there
Support.
Support? All in favor? We need a roll call.
All ayes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you, and thank you for everybody who participated.
Thank you again for holding a public hearing for us.
Oh, absolutely. All right. Next up is Director Stokes.
Good evening, Honorable Board.
Yes.
Today I'm coming before you to just present the check to Redford Interfaith Relief on behalf of the MLK breakfast that we held. So I just want to first thank everyone that attended, as well as our sponsors, which were the Buck Dinner Committee, the Redford Township, of course, One Redford, and a very special thank you to Mary Fox, who donated all of the food for that event, so that way it would benefit more to Redford Interfaith Relief, and Chef Tony and Karen. We know that the weather was absolutely freezing, and they were outside cooking the pancakes the entire time, making sure that everybody was fed for the event. So I'm going to call Angela up, and on behalf of all of the sponsors and the grants that we received, the total amount given to Redford Interfaith Relief this year is $1,725. And then Angela's going to say the words.
Oh, yeah, she's got to have a speech. Make sure the mic's up there so everybody can hear you.
Redford Interfaith Relief is incredibly thankful for all of these individuals and organizations and the Charter Township of Redford for coming together to put on this amazing event with engaging speakers, amazing music, so that we can come together for a better tomorrow. This amount that's donated for Redford Interfaith Relief will allow us to get about 3,500 pounds of food to serve those in need in Redford, and we're currently serving 300 plus households a month. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I completely forgot, so I should have wrote it down, but once again, to the Redford Democratic Club as well. So they were able to donate a large chunk of this as well. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Now we have a presentation from Jessica Gracier from the Assessment Department. And you have a packet for this.
Good evening, Honorable Board. Thank you for having me tonight. My name is Jessica Gracer. I am the Township Assessor, which means I am in charge of valuing roughly the 24,000 parcels that make up the township. For 2024, we anticipate the value to be roughly just under $2 billion in assessed value for this year. So with that undertaking, we're seeing a lot of changes. Sales continue to be strong. Though they have slowed down, I believe due to interest rates, there's still the supply and demand, so the market is still there. So there is a lot of competition, so we're still seeing higher sales prices. With that, for 2024, that impacted the value for 2024. We did have about 568 permits that did contribute to value for the township. And that's really strong. It's been strong the last couple of years. That just means people are improving their property, which is a great thing. And we did physically go out and measure, and when we're there, we're verifying all of our records to make sure they're as up-to-date and accurate as possible. We still do continue to try and get our township sketched. It's one of the largest hurdles that I personally would like to see rectified in the near future. It's a struggle for individuals that call or go on the BSNA online website thinking that the information will be there. They pay the $6 that it is per parcel now just to find that it is not. So we're doing our best to try and get that sketched as best as we can. And it's really in our downtime that we're seeing that over the summer. That's what I have. If you come in any given day, I do have some new additional staff that has been coming in to try and help me with that sketching, because I would like to see that done sooner rather than later. I do have the same old faces you've seen the past 18 years in the township, so there isn't much turnover with that. However, the values for 2024 are, again, like I said, increasing, specifically for commercial properties. They're going up a little bit more than they have in the past. We're going to see about just over 9% increase in commercial value for properties. That will be dispersed over different use, such as, gas stations or office or retail are all individually classified within the jurisdiction, and they each have their own adjustments accordingly. With industrial, we're seeing about a 4.22% increase, and then residential, we are seeing a 13.26% increase in values. Like I said, that's showing a large market increase as we have for the last couple of years. However, the increase in value doesn't always equate to tax dollars. For 2024, the values that will be used to compute taxes will be based on individuals' taxable values. Most individuals are longer-term homeowners, and they're only seeing that rate of inflation multiplier of 5%. So for last year, because of inflation, the rate was just over 7%. But with Proposal A in 1994, it capped that multiplier at 5%. So we could not increase the taxable value more than 5% for last year. For this year, we are going to see the same thing. Though it's slowing down, the actual rate of inflation was 5.1%. So residences are expected to see that 5% applied again because it's above that cap, so that 5% supersedes the actual multiplier. So we do expect to get phone calls. It is going up again. Please call us. You'll be receiving your notice within the next week. Everything went to the printers as of Monday. So everything is all set. We're just getting things finalized to be mailed, real property notices to residents. Excuse me. Once you receive that, I encourage residents to review that, and please call us. One of the biggest explanations that we find ourselves making is for that uncapping. The year after a property transfers or sales, the property pops up. And with the appreciating market right now in the township, individuals can see up to double, I've even seen triple property taxes. And that's not coming, we're the end result of that. The sales already happened. We can't do anything. Unfortunately, it's not being explained to new homeowners especially, or even if you just haven't purchased a property in so long, that this uncapping is not being properly explained to individuals when they're going to purchase the property. By the time they get to us, it's already happened. So there isn't a whole lot, and we understand the frustration. This same thing happened when we purchased our homes. We're all subject to this Proposal A. Everyone in the state of Michigan has the same uncapping that occurs the year after transfer of ownership. So if you do see that on your notice, it'll give an estimate of what your taxes are looking to increase or decrease for the year. That's an estimate. But I encourage you to call us. We can walk you through it. We can explain it. If you are unhappy then at that point, you can always appeal to our March Board of Review, which will be occurring the second week of March for 2024. And you can come into our board and appeal those values. So you will be heard. We try and explain as best as we can before they get to that point, just so there's a better understanding. But unfortunately, we're not always the good guys in the assessor's office. We do property taxes, but we can't explain to the best of our ability. And we understand you have a right to appeal, and we encourage individuals to do so. We also encourage residents to come in and get a copy of their record card to make sure everything is up to date and accurate. Is your square footage correct? Do we have the correct amenities to your house? And we're more than happy to go out and review that property if you so choose, or find a discrepancy. So what we're going to be seeing is with these appeals, we do encourage, so what we have tried to do over the years is get the law changed, so where we could have this explained to individuals when they're purchasing the property as opposed to now, the year after when this uncapping occurs. We have been unsuccessful from the assessor standpoint, so I would also encourage any residents to reach out to their local representatives that do have the power to change this, if we could, just because it is such a significant impact when you have your mortgage payment set on X to what you can afford, and then now you're being told it's going to be Y. So that it is our biggest misunderstanding. It's just not properly explained when the sale is occurring. So that's really the majority of our phone calls currently. And like I said, we are more than happy to go over that and go over and review and make sure everything looks up to date and accurate. So our board activity for the past couple of years has been pretty consistent. There has been some legislative changes, particularly for 2024. It actually started in December of '23, but we no longer will process our veterans exemptions at our local boards. We're able to make these changes as the assessor, so a veteran doesn't have to wait months and months to have these changes made. They can be made right then and there, or within a week of giving us that information. We do require a deed to be submitted starting in 2024, just due to the fact that there was also a change in how we have to apply it. Veterans are no longer able to have someone other than their spouse on the deed. So they are unable to have a child, a relative, a friend, anyone on the deed with them if they apply. This does not apply to Lady Bird deeds. You can have a life estate still and receive the exemption. However, we do require that you submit that information to us so we can verify. So that's really the biggest change for the veterans exemption. There was one minor change to the poverty exemption for 2024. And again, the poverty exemption is an annual exemption for low income. The application's on our website, and it will reduce a qualifying individual's taxable value by 50% for the year. So you can check our website, you can come into our office. That is something that would have to go to March, July, or December Board of Review. And the information is right on the cover page of the application to show how to do that. We're more than happy to help people walk through that. There is supporting documentation that is required. But for 2024 specifically, they are allowing us to go back a year. So say you are a new applicant for 2024 and you qualify, the state is now allowing us to also change the prior year. So it would be 2023 at this point, and moving forward at our July and December boards of review. So that's really the biggest legislative changes as far as the assessor's office. For 2023, we did have that new Oprah on Woodbine. I was able to walk through it on Friday, and they are just in the process of demolition right now. So they're just getting their hands dirty with all of that. I was able to contact the foreman of the project. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing how that's going to turn out. As far as moving forward for 2025, we are coming into an AMAR audit every 5 years. We go through a state audit. Assessors do. Wayne County was selected for 2025, so all of the jurisdictions are getting this audit. We received a perfect score last time that this happened, so I hope to receive another perfect score again, and I am already preparing for that now. So I'm trying to implement a lot of the changes or the little nuances that they're requiring for 24 right now, so I don't have to worry about it for 25. So that's really our biggest ongoings with the assessor's office.
Well, I just want to say that working with the assessor's office for the last few years, they do an outstanding job of being polite to citizens, to going above and beyond, to get information, some information that people want to do. All they're doing is what is by the law and it's correct, so we can't make magic happen in the assessor's office. But they do an outstanding job, and sometimes they put up with residents that are really unhappy, and I commend you guys for doing that. It's a tough job. And I'm glad you're here to be fair and honest with the citizens of Redford Township. The other thing is that State Senator Mary Kavanaugh's in the back. So after you get done, this is a person you probably want to talk to about some of these issues. She's done a great job for us in doing some things up in Lansing, and I'm sure she'd be more than happy to hear what you have to say on a one-on-one to assist the township in other endeavors as well. And the last question, to give it to everybody else, is that the low income to qualify for 50%. What do we tell what that number is?
Yes.
I mean, that's only part of it is that number, but if you're not at that level, then I don't want anybody watching thinking, well, I'm going to go in there, and they go, well, I never knew it was that much.
So it's right on the application, but
Okay.
it's actually in the packet as well.
Okay.
When it discusses the poverty exemption.
Yep.
Under the exemption, it does give, it's per household.
Okay.
So, I mean, do you want me to go through each?
No, I just want to make sure it's clear for if anybody's watching, so that all these the people don't show up and they're already above what
Yes.
that number is,
Yes.
and then they're disappointed. right?
Yes. So the information is on the website. It is available. I mean, you can call us and we can go over it. But for example, a household of one, these values are based on the federal poverty guidelines. This isn't an arbitrary number that we pick as the township. This actually comes from a federal number and implemented from the State Tax Commission. So for 2024, a household of one would have to be less than $14,580. And then a household of two would have to be under $19,720. And then it incrementally moves up as it goes on to 8, and then anything above and beyond 8, it's a designated amount per person.
Okay.
So it is also, Thank you for bringing this up. So it's not only income, but it's also an asset level. So it's going to look at a household income and a household assets. So it would be liquid assets, not your house. So anything you have, if you have anything in retirement or stocks or bonds or any kind of liquid assets would be considered. And that threshold is $10,000 for an individual and $20,000 for a household. And that also is in this packet.
Well, I appreciate it, just that everybody at home doesn't have the packet, and
Sure.
it would help clarify, so if they show up, they'll at least get a ballpark of where they need to start.
In the application, I know I've said this a couple times,
Yep.
it's on our website, but also, we're more than happy to go over that with anybody that calls. We can give them the information or say, hey, I don't know, they told me to call you, so just bug us, please.
Yes.
To the chair?
Treasurer Kavanaugh.
I just want to reiterate that the assessing is here at Town Hall, and they have the same hours as we do, 8:30 to 4:30. So just a reminder, or maybe to the new residents, that assessing is here at Town Hall on the first floor.
To the chair,
Trustee Taylor.
what's the website?
It's the Redford Township website, redfordtwp.com, under the assessor's office portion of the webpage. The application is right on there with the support, with the criteria as well. There's a whole packet for the poverty exemption on the assessor's webpage.
So they just go to redfordtwp.com, go under departments?
Correct.
And you're listed under departments, and if they click on assessor, it'll bring up all that information.
Yep,
that
it's
you-
right on the bottom. It'll be under forms, and it's right on there.
Perfect, thank
Yep,
you.
Of course.
To the
Yeah.
chair,
Trustee Jackson.
when somebody purchases a home and it becomes uncapped, as
Yes.
far as the taxable value, is that uncapping permanently or just the first year that they buy a home?
So, yes to both questions. It won't uncap every single year. It goes through the one uncapping the year following transfer of ownership. However, that uncapping sets the basis moving forward. So it never goes back down to what the prior owners paid. It stays at that level, and then at the following year will be capped and only raise at the rate of inflation, or 5%, whichever is less. So it sets the basis moving forward,
Okay.
so to speak.
Other questions from the
Of
board?
course.
Hearing none, thank you ever so much
Thank you.
for what you do and for your presentation.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Good job.
Kind of like it when the assessor gets all of us.
Consent agenda items, Treasurer Kavanaugh.
Yes, thank you, Supervisor McCray. I move to approve the consent agenda items as follows. The minutes of the regular meeting of January 23rd of 2024, the warrant listed bills as of February 8th in a total amount of $3,621,885.15. The request for guideposts to solicit bids for Recreation Wellness Center Technology Services, the request for Frank Rewald and Sons to solicit bids for Recreation and Wellness Center construction subcontractors, the second quarter investment earnings report, July 23rd through July 2023 to September 31st of 2023, resignation of Nisha Stanley from the DEI Commission.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to new business.
Unfinished.
Unfinished. It's been so long, it feels like.
I know, it does.
Okay. That, we're going to talk about, the first under unfinished business is the first reading of the marijuana zoning amendments to 152N permits for certain limited marijuana establishments, Articles 10, 12, 13, and 14. Our attorney, township attorney, Anthony Chubb, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Board. So first, procedurally, I just want to remind everyone where we're at. These are two ordinances, unfinished business items number 1 and 2, that really can be talked about together because it's one and the same. One is the zoning ordinance portion of allowing certain marijuana businesses in certain locations within the city. And the other one is the regulatory portion of that, which kind of gives the nuts and bolts of the application and enforcement process. consistent with the Zoning Enabling Act. Procedurally, this was before the board. The zoning ordinance under the Zoning Enabling Act is required to go to the Planning Commission. It was, I believe it was my partner's recommendation and the board's action that we sent both of the ordinances to the Planning Commission so that they could just read them in context and understand how both pieces work, because they very much both work together. So when we look at, well, so from a from a high level, when we talked about allowing marijuana facilities within the township, we talked about the two basic ways of allowing an application process. And one is a merit-based system, which is a point and scoring system. The other is one that provides unlimited numbers of licenses subject to limitations that are set forth within the zoning ordinance. The board decided, and I think very wisely so, the latter is a much better way to go as far as litigation. We've implemented the same where I'm East Lansing City Attorney and Saline City Attorney. We've used the implementation process relying on the zoning ordinance and had minimal to little litigation. Comparatively, you've seen some things, just, north on Telegraph, I believe that the voters initiated a scoring-based system in 2018, and there is still a tremendous amount of litigation, and I don't believe that they've had a single business open, and that was in 2018. So when we look at the first document, which is the zoning ordinance, I just wanted to go over the highlights. You have all seen this before. The Planning Commission did make certain changes under the Zoning Enabling Act. They have the ability to review the ordinance, recommend changes, and send it, and either recommend its adoption or recommend that it not be adopted and send it back to this board with the understanding that you are not bound by those recommendations. And so the way that the document is now, we will have first reading tonight. We can make changes as the board sees fit prior to the second reading, and it will be adopted in the format that is approved in the second reading, regardless of the recommendations of the Planning Commission. When we go through the ordinance, and again, we're looking at item number 1 here, that's the zoning ordinance. I believe that there was a change on the first page where we spoke about the distance between marijuana establishments. That's one of the most key factors in this entire ordinance, because it sets forth the density of these businesses within the allotted areas. We previously had 2,500 feet from a building to the nearest property line. It was changed from nearest property line to nearest property line. I think that, if anything else, it's administratively the easiest way to do it between the two closest property lines of the two businesses. Then you look at where what are typically called green zones are. Those are the areas that are allowed. Those are on page 3 of the ordinance. And so there are 2 green zones. There's the industrial overlay district and the marijuana retail establishment overlay district. So within the industrial overlay district, and this, you have to backtrack a little bit the way that the ordinance is written, but within the industrial overlay, the eligible marijuana facilities are safety compliance facilities, secure transporters, grows of any size, which range up to 2,000 plants, and processors. When you look at the marijuana retail establishment overlay district, that is solely limited to retail facilities. And that was altered, and I believe it was that they added 8 Mile Road. I believe all of the other limitations are consistent with what was sent from this board to the Planning Commission. Next, when we look at the buffer distance restrictions, there was a significant modification in the way that we reviewed the buffer district restrictions from things such as schools, churches, parks. Because we have, the city, or the township rather, has a much better control over uses of properties going forward, all of these buffers were limited to buffering from other prohibited uses being too close that are located within the township. So if there are things that would potentially be too close within the city to the east, for example, on any side though, those would not be counted for purposes of the buffer restrictions. And that wasn't change made by the Planning Commission. And again, it speaks, in my recollection, it was their thought about the fact that we control future uses of things within the township better than we can within adjoining communities. Moving over to page 4, the distance from a religious institution was increased from 250 feet to 500 feet. It's my recollection that the public park 1,000-foot restriction was eliminated, but prior to this being sent to the Planning Commission, they have recommended that it be added back on. And then when we talk about the 50-foot from a principally residential zone building, there was a prior requirement to a 4-foot retaining wall being on the rear of the commercial property. That's been changed to a 6-foot screening wall. I believe the last substantial change is, and if there were other changes that I didn't note, I think they're really minor, and it was more so moving around where the same language is located within the ordinance. But there was also a change. You had sent this to the Planning Commission with notification to property owners of an SUP, To open one of these facilities, you're required to get a special use permit. Standard protocol is that we would notify everyone within a 300-foot radius of that permit request application. This board changed it to 500 feet. The Planning Commission took it back down to 300, which is the Planning Commission standard. I believe those are the only changes that were made by the Planning Commission to the zoning ordinance. Should I go through both of them before we deal with questions, or what is the pleasure of the board?
Well, I think that we should probably talk about these one at a time. So at least otherwise it's too much stuff all mixed together. So let's talk about this particular one. Questions from the board?
To the chair.
Trustee Taylor.
Anthony, just a couple of questions about, I know that you guys have drafted ordinances for several municipalities, such as these. And I'm curious as to when determining buffers, such as whether or not, in my research, I found that it varies greatly from municipality to municipality. Whether or not to have a buffer from a religious institution varies greatly from municipality, or even playgrounds. Some do, some don't. What's the logic in deciding whether to have a buffer from something like a religious institution or not? Is that strictly the will of the board? How does one come to those decisions?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I really don't think that's as much of a legal question as it is just the specific interests of the board or council that oversee that city and potentially, the amount of parks, for example, within the city and where they're located, or within the township, and where people may see concerns about the interplay between the two, depending on their proximity. I have seen them vary greatly, just like you said.
And can you tell me, have you found, is there a norm when making that decision as you're guiding municipality boards? Is there an average or a norm that you're seeing people use? I mean, I see it, like I said, it varies greatly from 1,000 feet to not mentioned at all. And is there any buffers required from something like liquor stores or tobacco stores, from religious institutions, childcare, or parks?
So, well, I mean, there's a little bit of complexity to that because certain types of liquor stores, if they can get it, like an SDM, for example, that's solely issued by the state. It's
What's that?
Tony, yeah.
What's that?
Sorry.
I know,
That's allowed.
What's that? Yeah, what's that?
Yeah, so there are certain liquor licenses where you can provide for off-site consumption of beer and wine, and those are issued directly by the Michigan Liquor Control Commission now. We don't even know when they're issued a lot of the time. And so providing the setbacks becomes very difficult because, like I was saying, in regulating the property in adjoining towns, now that's regulating a use that we're not the regulators, and so that becomes very difficult. I have seen that implemented, but I think that that's consistently difficult to enforce. As it relates to the other setbacks and some of these huge distances or differences in proximity setback requirements, I think it's really dependent upon the community. I think in a lot of more historic communities, you're going to find more churches, for example, and there's a proximity issue where the 1,000-foot setback from a church in a newly developed township in, far outer ring is going to completely eliminate the potential use in some older, more dense communities. And so it's really trying to ensure that we provide some form of setback, but also trying to ensure that we don't eliminate a use or control a use down to the level that it could potentially be considered spot zoning, which is a standard under state law that you can't use zoning such that you are literally limiting a use to very specific locations and very limited locations within the city. In our review of everything and how this implements, this doesn't look like we come anywhere near that.
Okay, that was my concern, is when I look at the circles on the map, is our buffers too restrictive to where it's going to do just what you say? Because like us being an older community, we have like between 40 and 45 churches in our 11 square mile township. So it makes it very difficult when you've got that buffer, when you place those everywhere, and then in addition to our 12 parks, and then it does start to really shrink down the map. And I just wondered if we have any concerns for litigation if the map gets shrunk too much.
Yeah, to this degree, I don't think that it's an issue. And I think that the predominant proximity setback is the requirement of distance between each of the facilities themselves. And so that largely drives the final amount of facilities that will be in the community. If it was an engineered of every application to try to maximize them, the number would be a lot different than if it were the way that it is going to happen, which is we can't really control it. We take them in the order they're received. That then sets another pin. So when you're looking at that buffer map and you're looking at the circles, the first person in line that gets an approved license creates another 5,000-foot circle. And that's what's really going to drive limitation within the township.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, thank you.
So speaking on that, is when you say get in line, how are we going to get in line? I mean, if we say, well, the doors open at 8:30, I mean, it's like selling concert tickets. Whoever gets there, it stays all night in line, gets the first drip. I mean,
Yeah, so that's a complicated piece of this. That's
Yeah.
the most complex piece of the implementation. That's why we put a timing of, I believe it's 120 days after approval, because we really need to plan between the clerk's office, who will be accepting the applications, the township police department. We will need surveillance. I've litigated this issue for the city of Mount Clemens. And so we do want to ensure that we have absolute physical evidence of what happens on those days. The documents were also amended because of some other issues. When you have somebody coming for, and being first in line, it's my understanding in other communities in Oakland County that use this method, that people sold their spots for many thousands, many tens of thousands of dollars. People took other applications, so the first person in line had 5 applications, things like that. And so we've tried to work on using that experience to try to not recreate those issues. But that is, I mean, we will likely have people waiting in line for many days.
Day and night, you're saying they'll be out here waiting in line?
That's been my experience, yeah.
Wow. Okay. And okay, I guess then that's why we have to have the police department for, in case somebody decides you're not in line and they want to get in a fist fight about who's in line?
Again, I think
I'm just thinking about.
I mean, again, it's generally a very civilized crowd, but it's always better to have surveillance and somebody else, another set of eyes out there.
Okay. Other questions from the board? Okay. I guess at this time, I want to do the same kind of thing that we did with the last, because I want to make sure there's a lot of people here that would like to have some input. Please, when you come to the mic, name and address, make your comments brief. If somebody in front of you asks the same question, you still have a right to go up and ask it 10 times, but if the question's been answered, to be polite to everybody, then not to keep asking the same question 10 different times. So if you kind of line up over on this side of the room, okay, and we're talking about, 3 minutes. I don't know if you timing?
I'm not, but Brian will put the timer up.
Okay, well, Brian, before we start, you can hear me, can you put the timer up, the 3-minute timer up, so we can start? Okay, well, there we go. Name and address and say your piece, please.
Gabriel Reese, 25388 Graham Road. Hi, Honorable Board. You already know my position on this. I've been talking about it for 2.5 years at every meeting on this subject that I could attend. I'm not in favor of opening up the marijuana ordinance. I recognize it's going to happen. So I appreciate all the work that's been done to take in the feedback about some of the buffer zones, about the language on murals and other exterior components. So all of that being said, thank you. And I want to say something I said about a year ago, which is that Redford, our objective is not to raise tax dollars. It's a thing we do. We render services, but we are not a business. Our goal is not to get more tax revenue. So while I understand the law has changed and we're going to do this and try to do it in a way that's best for the community, I think it's great that we have lots of buffer zones, and that by my estimation, if we optimize, there could be about 8 to 9 retail locations in their current zones, just based on that 2,500 feet on either side. Probably less. I think that's great. I think starting at a very simple way, so we talk about car dealerships. We go, there's however ungodly number there is. We talk about the liquor shops. That came up once. It's like, well, I mean, look at these liquor shops. Look how ugly they are. Well, I wish they weren't. And so I feel the same thing about this. I would love to start in the most cautious and careful way, which I think this plan does do that in a lot of ways. And I appreciate that we've kept it to key corridors and zones. One thing that I think I'm overreading it. Looking at the map on 5 Mile, just west of Telegraph, it looks like that AutoZone Tim Hortons location is included in the red, but I know those are 5 Mile addresses, so I just wanted to call that out. that 5 miles not an included zone. And then again, I think people come to Redford, a lot of people commute through it. My dream is that it does become a community where people actually stop and slow down and spend time in the DDA at local businesses. And I think what we put on the corners of those entrance points does matter. I think people's perception of a community, again, whether or not you support marijuana use, that's bunk at this point, right? The laws have changed, marijuana use is here. But I think being cautious now, because what we do now, in 40 years, there's going to be a board that says, oh, I wish they hadn't done. Or they may say, I'm really glad they rolled it out over a period of a decade. So I just want to say that caution and a slow walking on this process. And again, thank you for all the hard work. Thank you, Attorney Chubb, for all the work on this and answering the emails over the years. And I just want to know all the guests we have today. I'm always amazed at how many people show up on nights when this is on the agenda. And I am curious how many of them would come out another night. I'd like to see people spending this much interest on other issues in the township beyond just business licenses for special issues. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Name and address.
Jack Keenan, 255 05 Monroe Road. I will be really quick here.
Okay.
My request is that the proposed readings be submitted online so that we can study the language and see exactly what is in each particular item. I'm sure that Mr. Chubb does a wonderful job, and I've had some contact with him in different areas, and so I would like to see before we have a public hearing, that we can look at the language of the individual ordinances so that we can make intelligent comments about them. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor, honorable members of the board. Rob Donovic, 37637 5 Mile Road, Livonia, Michigan. I'm coming to you tonight from the perspective of a commercial real estate owner. I own various properties on Plymouth Road. I do not operate in this industry at all. I don't know anything about it, but my perspective from a commercial real estate owner, and specifically the zoning and some of the buffers that have been mentioned tonight. And I know there's a lot of emotion on the pros and cons of this particular item, and that's well received, and I definitely think that's something that we all take in consideration. But when we think about the implications of the zoning, I believe that originally the board had recommended 250 feet away from religious places of worship, and now it's been increased. And I think that's problematic because what we see, and to your council's perspective on it, was this community, every community is different. And Redford Township, when you think of churches, you think of the big churches, the big mosques. That's what you typically think of. Well, what we're seeing in the commercial real estate industry is that churches are now occupying more of these commercial-oriented buildings, your strip malls, retail centers. And like anything, they're tenant-based. They come and go as they find new venues, they finally buy the building they want maybe, they need to increase their space or decrease their space, they come and go. And I think from a commercial real estate perspective, we're limiting future marketability of buildings in our community that maybe are strategically located for the township that would be a great retail location. All of a sudden, they're kind of no longer can be used because they're within 300 feet or 400 feet or so on of a religious place religious institution. And I'd like to note that some of the examples, if you look at the community, they are next door to a liquor store, or they are next door to offices, barbershops, phone stores. So I just caution the board if maybe you take another look at that. I know these are very complicated matters, and there's no perfect decision. And I totally understand buffers. I think they're definitely needed. But I do think that, to your council's view, opinion was, every community is different. And I think Redford Township does have a lot of churches, and they come and go. And I do think that we'd be limiting some strategic properties in the community if we kept that 500-foot buffer. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Name and address for the record, please.
Hassad, 1 West Jefferson, Trenton. I'm one of the owners of the mobile gas station on Joy and Inkster. We've been there for over 30 years now. And a few months ago, I was here with my architect and engineer, and we were a part of the original plan to have a dispensary at this corner. And it looks like they might have changed. And we would like to be a part of the plan to have a dispensary over there. As of right now, we leased that station out to somebody, and at the end of the year, we're probably like breaking even at the end of the year, and we want to energize this corner by doing a new dispensary, new landscaping, and whatever else you guys would like there to see at that corner. That's my only concern right now. I mean, we want to see why we can't, I don't see why we can't do a dispensary at that corner when a few months ago we were allowed to. That's it.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Good evening, Board. Thank you for the time. My name is Jerry Griffin, 9212 Coriander Way in Brighton, Michigan. I've worked in the marijuana industry on behalf of vendors for some time. I guess first, while I understand and agree with Redford Township's desire to avoid litigation, the proposed ordinance leaves open the process by which applications will be accepted, and we've heard a little discussion on that already. A first-come, first-served process is just going to result in litigation because people will say, I was here first, or certain people were given undue access. And if you're considering allowing electronic filing, you're going to have another instance where timestamps or someone will say that theirs got in first. So you will not be avoiding litigation by doing a first-come, first-served basis. Simplest way to resolve that is to remove the buffers that exist between marijuana facilities. That way you don't have a process. You just have people having a time period in which they come in. Every building that's in an existing zoning area is not going to turn into a marijuana facility. These existing businesses are going to remain. And you're using zoning and buffers to already limit those areas. I would also suggest you remove the 50-foot buffer restriction from residential property. The property being made eligible is already commercial. These properties' uses are not being changed. Security requirements will actually make the area safer. And also because in your regulatory ordinance, you have limited hours. These are open less period of time than most of the businesses will be surrounding them. Instead, I would simply require that the businesses can't be contiguous to residential and or possibly have a public right-of-way or alley between them actually acting as the natural buffer. Remember, you're also going to have a 6-foot wall. Lastly, I would recommend or hope that you'll consider making all the non-school buffers consistent. Just make them all 500 feet. You had some at 0, you had some at 1,000. For instance, we're talking about daycare facilities. These are young children going to daycare facilities, getting dropped off and picked up. They never leave the facility. I'm not really sure what situation people are concerned or the danger being about. Playgrounds also are rarely utilized in the winter. There's kids there, they're rarely unattended. I don't know that proximity equals danger. And so I would just hope that you would consider making all these 500 feet. And I would simply say, you've decided to consider allowing these businesses in the first place. The simplest way to do this is to just treat them like any other business. They're highly regulated already. They're barriers to entry. You're using buffers. You're using zoning to limit where they can go. Treat them like any other business. Allow them to come in. Some will fail. The best ones that are operating will remain. And in the meantime, you're going to have a lot of underutilized businesses fixed up so that if they do fail, they're more attractive to future use. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Sujud Hamani, and I'm an attorney from H&H Law, 23756 Michigan Avenue. I specialize in cannabis licensing and compliance, and I just have a few suggestions. My first being the 2,500-foot buffer between establishments to establishments. I think that I would recommend that it be limited toward dispensaries, whether you want to limit dispensaries and their distance to other dispensaries, or dispensaries and their distance to safety compliance facilities, grows, cultivations, that sort of thing, that's fine. But to limit cultivation facilities or to limit secure transporter just because there's a dispensary within 2,500 feet away, would it make sense? And what it'll do in effect is it'll cause most people will only be able, or most businesses will only be able to get a retail license, and then it'll close the door in effect to any other types of businesses, because those are the most sought after. So then you won't have any safety compliance labs, you won't have any cultivation facilities or anything else. I also would recommend, and I'm going to echo some of the sentiments of the few gentlemen that came before me, and ask that you reconsider the 1,000-foot requirement that's from churches to all marijuana establishments, and especially in the case of the ones that are allowed in the industrial zone. So the cultivation, safety compliance, secure transport, and those in particular, nobody has, the general public doesn't have access to them. There is no storefront like there is with a retailer. So you won't have the same issues that you will, or there won't be the same concerns that you're going to have with a retailer. With, for example, a grow, as you guys know, it's heavily, they're heavily surveilled. Each and every single one of these facilities are heavily surveilled. Nobody's allowed in unless they provide, unless there's a reason for them to be there, and unless, and they have to provide their information, and they have to sign up with a call log and everything. So it's not as though a student could just walk in to a grow and access the plants and whatnot. They're heavily surveilled, heavily guarded generally, and there's no way for anybody to, for any child or for anybody from a religious institute to access these facilities. So I can understand, though, the concern to want to limit them from dispensary to dispensary, just because, I mean, as you've seen in other municipalities, sometimes it gets saturated. Everyone wants to get their foot in the door, and everybody wants a retailer. But for the other establishments, I would recommend not having that buffer in place. Thank you all for your time.
Hello, John Pastor, 34018 Beacon, Livonia, Michigan. I'm not an attorney. A couple of items is, I guess, would be, how are you measuring the distance? Are we doing it the way the crow flies, or if we're doing it the way we normally would measure out the front door to, the street and all that stuff to get your distances? I'd caution on the first come, first serve. Because if I was, let's say, camping somebody out here, I'd ask them for 15 applications, and then that really shuts it down just to that one person, so I'd be very cautious about that. And then I also agree with some of the distances, whether it's 1,000 or 500 feet, but let's establish how we do that measurement. Because if you think about it, most of Redford is residential based, which is always against the commercial, so pretty much none of these locations are going to be in compliance anyway, so it can make it very difficult for anybody to get that in here. So those are my comments. I appreciate it.
Okay. Any other comments from the audience? Any other comments specifically from Redford residents? Okay.
To the chair.
Trustee Taylor.
Before we move on to the licensing one, I would like the board to entertain some changes to the zoning one.
Okay. So are you going to tell us what page as well?
Yes.
Okay.
So, let's see.
Let's just get to the pages.
So starting on the very first page, if we go down under number 1, purpose,
Yep.
to number 1, marijuana retail establishments are required to face on and have addresses on the overlay district road, which to address that game, that was east side, west side that you were looking at on Telegraph Road. That wasn't on 5 Mile. Be at least 2,500 feet from other marijuana establishments measured between nearest property lines. I would like that to say specifically other marijuana retail establishments. I agree that I don't think that there's a need for buffers from businesses that will be in the industrial area. I think our main concern when we created the retail overlay district is that we created these buffers for retail establishments, and we really weren't concerned about like the out of sight, out of mind, grow, transport and stuff. So I think it should just be specifically for the 2,500-foot buffer should be from retail establishment to retail establishment and not for the grows or anything. And if we're gonna, if the board would entertain that change, then we would have to also make the change on page 3 under the buffer distance restrictions, letter A, where it says the proximity of all proposed marijuana, and again, I would ask that we just say retail establishments shall not be less than the following. Now, I did the Google map now because it's hard to visualize what 1,000 feet is or what 2,500 feet is, and to be clear, 2,500 feet is like a half a mile. So if you put a marijuana retail establishment like at Plymouth and Beach, you pretty much are gonna only have one when you go out a half a mile each way. There's really not gonna be a lot of options. So I think that's definitely gonna help, like you said, with, as you look at the maps, and if you were to map it out and then do the circle around it, a half a mile in each direction, that's a mile, and we're only a 2-mile wide township. So I think you just doing that for the retail establishments is reasonable. And I would also ask, as we are discussing buffers, because we're such a small, narrow community with nearly 45 churches, in 12 parks, and then I don't even know how many childcare facilities. I didn't get a chance to count all of those up. But I don't understand, in looking at other communities that are around us, like Westland and Wayne and Ann Arbor and Ferndale and Detroit, and what their buffers are, the need to create such large buffers, as I would agree with some of the other people that spoke about the religious institutions, and I'm not sure. So, okay, so, all right, let me stick with page 3. So page 3, number 2, under buffers, I would request that there is no need to create a buffer between a child care facility where they take care of infants and toddlers. I'm not sure where the threat to the toddlers comes from to have a retail establishment within 1,000 feet of a commercial child care organization. Again, I could see if they were school-age children and they're impressionable, but we're talking, like we said, about infants and babies that are picked up and dropped off by mom and dad. So I would ask the board to entertain removing number 2. I would also, going on to the next page, page 4, number 3, the 500 feet from religious institutions, I would ask that we would remove that. Number 4, I would ask that we shorten the distance from a public park to 500 feet instead of 1,000 feet. 1,000 feet is nearly a quarter of a mile. And if you understand the map and you look like, for instance, where Handy Park is, Handy Park being on Capitol and Hemingway would eliminate businesses being able to open up on Plymouth Road. So to me, that doesn't seem like a reasonable buffer. So I would ask that we entertain to drop that down to 500 feet. And then again, number 6, if we're going to just do the buffers for the retail, it would say all marijuana establishments permitted in the C2 zoning or M1 light must be located 2,500 feet from other marijuana retail establishments. Those would be the changes that I would ask the board to entertain to make this a more retail, business-friendly zoning map. I appreciate Mr. Reese's comments. It's been 6 years since marijuana became legal. So I think we have approaches with caution as we see that a lot of it, there's been a lot of, almost say saturation of the business that I really don't think that we're gonna have an influx of that we need to worry about like we did 6 years ago when we decided to move forward with caution. And we've been working on this for a couple of years now. So I think that with those buffers that we'll still see a reasonable amount of retail and open up our industrial a little bit more. I just don't understand, strangling the industrial businesses with parks and things like that where nobody can tell me, I think, in this room what we have in our industrial zone right now. I know I don't drive through it, so. I would ask the board to entertain those changes and I will relinquish my time.
Anybody else from the board? Okay,
To the chair.
Okay, go ahead, Trustee Jackson.
With the changes that Trustee Taylor, are we going to go through and accept some of the changes or
Well,
none of the changes? Is how does this work?
Do you have any changes for yourself?
No.
Okay, so now we're going to, unless the board has objection, then we'll talk about the changes proposed. Okay? And the first one I have that I've written down is on page 1, and this shoot that Trustee Taylor suggests we should do a retail, is it number 2 you're talking about? One. That should be retail establishments. Is that what you said? Let me clarify for number 1.
Yes, so for number 1, under the purpose, go down to number 1.
Yep.
That it would read that the marijuana retail establishments are required to face on and have addresses on the overlay district road and be at least 2,500 feet from any other marijuana retail establishment. That would be the only change to that, just to specify retail.
Does anybody have objection to that?
No.
Does our township attorney have any concerns about that?
No, absolutely. It still keeps in the buffers that we're concerned about, which is ensuring somewhat limited proliferation of retail establishments and density through the buffers between them.
Okay. So the next change I think you suggested, Trustee Taylor, was on page 3,
Correct.
and that would be 3A as the first one?
Yeah, so it would just be matching the change of the language on page 1 to change to insert retail establishment instead of just marijuana establishment. So it's just for continuity.
Okay.
And then we'd be moving down to number 2.
Okay, does anybody have, I didn't hear any objection for the first change. Does anybody have any objection to making that match with the other page on 9A? Do we have any problems with changing that to match, or does that change make the match? Mr. Chubb?
Yeah, this just does have this imposes additional, well, removes additional setbacks, and that there are no, so long as a facility that's a non-retail facility would match the zoning requirement of the property, then it wouldn't have any limitations to any of the buffered uses listed below. Again, I know there are a lot of, we have an office in Lansing, for example. I know there are a lot of different types of non-retail facilities. I know that I drive by them every day, and I've never even noticed one of them. I don't think that it's the type of use that would be a big issue. There are a lot of limitations on their operations so that they don't create a nuisance in the form of smells or other things like that. But be aware that this does make that change so that there is no buffer for a non-retail facility so long as it matches the required zoning use for the non-retail facility.
So that means that if it's, the rest of them would be mute? Is that what you're saying?
This would allow all of those to apply only to a marijuana retail facility. The non-retail facilities such as growers and processors would not be subject to the buffers.
So that they could put
They're in industrial.
they don't, well, but those growers could be less than 1,000 feet from a public school located in Redford, if we just put retail in.
To the extent that they meet the zoning requirement and that they are within the industrial overlay, which I don't believe is near any schools.
Mr. Dennis?
There is a part of it that by 2 schools to the east, the industrial overlay.
Which school, Mike?
As defined as the 2 charter schools in Clemson, Colorado, the industrial overlay district.
Yeah.
Oh, the ones on the east side of Plymouth Road.
Yep.
There's a school over there.
There are 2 schools.
But that's-
There's one, the old Cornerstone, and there's the Michigan, Technical Academy.
But is that M1 medium over there, or is that M1 light?
Over there, the industrial overlay district was defined as Glendale to Plymouth, from Woodbine to Dixie or Garfield.
No, it's not. It just says industrial overlay district is M1A medium and M2 general.
Yeah.
There's no boundaries listed for those, just so whatever is in your zoning map.
Works back there.
Okay.
So wherever the M1A medium and M2 general zoned, which I didn't think that was anything along Telegraph Road. I know that's M1 light on that side over by the gas station and Johnston's, right? That's M1 light, not M1A medium.
I'm looking at that.
there, that's why.
It's just catching that edge. It runs along Woodbine.
Yeah, like, that's all I was just adding, is that there's 2 schools that are just on the east side there.
But they're not in M1 medium, right? Correct?
They abutted.
But they, within 1,000 feet,
Yeah.
they go past it. They go past Telegraph Road.
Right, 1 block in to Woodbine.
Yeah, just for a small part there, yeah, on the map, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if I'm comfortable doing that. Because unless I'm looking, the green is with the industrial overlay district on the map, no? No? So it says on the map here, the green is industrial overlay district. And the industrial overlay district comes across Telegraph and abuts at Wadsworth. There's a district from Telegraph to whatever this street is.
So Mike,
Hazelton.
it goes past east side of Telegraph?
Yes. It has to.
Isn't that where Detroit Diesel is?
Yep.
That's all Detroit Diesel's property?
That's cool. Sorry, there's a school just to the east side of Detroit Diesel parking lot, and there's one on the south side as well.
Yep.
But that green part there, from Wadsworth
Well,
to, is that Detroit Diesel?
Detroit Diesel, yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's considered the industrial overlay district is the green area.
Yep.
As defined.
Technically, if Detroit Diesel ever left.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, that's
But it
just
still is.
all the zoned areas, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's at top of the map, the green part is the industrial overlay district. What I was saying is from the railroad tracks to Plymouth, Dixie, Garfield bound, and that was how it was defined, per the board and also the zoning commission. Yep.
So I guess for me, I don't want to take that out because we have a situation that we're aware of right now. I mean, I'm not opposed to looking at changing some of these other distances, but I don't want to just slide in retail there because we already have a part of that's,
No, it's saying that the buffers only would pertain to retail and not to grows and transports that would be allowed in the industrials.
right, but in that area is right next, that area that Detroit Diesel occupies abuts a school.
It does. So we know that nobody's going to be building there on Detroit Diesel's property, right?
Well, but we don't know that. I mean,
We kind of do,
well,
realistically. Detroit Diesel's not going anywhere. And if that's the only school, and that's the only area that affects, is Detroit Diesel's property, and I think that's even a school that Detroit Diesel runs.
I don't think so.
Don't they have a charter?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, it's a private charter school.
Yeah, but it's not Detroit Diesel.
Private? That Montessori school?
No, it's called Cornerstone.
Okay, they used to have a Montessori school there too.
So anyway, I have troubles with that. That's my opinion. I don't know how the rest of the board feels about 9A to do that, and this would be a time to have that discussion. Because Trustee Taylor and I don't need to make all the decisions.
To the chair.
Trustee Jackson?
I don't agree with changing 9A either. 9A number 2 is the one we're talking about. 1,000 feet.
No,
not just 9A.
No, right
If
now,
9A, it's
inserting retail.
So that the buffers listed below only pertain to retail and don't pertain to grow, transport, the ones that are going to be in the industrial zone. My argument is that I don't think any of the following buffers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, should pertain to the industrial zoned area, that they should only pertain to the retail zoned area. That's what my point is.
Well, and I guess for me, if we leave it the way it is, and we can change the verbiage for 1, 2, the other one's down here.
Mr. Chair,
Trustee King.
I move we call the question on this issue and have a roll call vote on this particular item and then move forward.
What are we voting on?
On 9A, to add the proximity of all proposed marijuana establishments should not be less than, and Trustee Taylor would like to insert the word purpose marijuana retail establishments. So, the question's been called. So we'll wait till the clerk gets ready to write something down.
I don't object to calling the question answer. I think we've had sufficient debate on this.
On that one.
But,
Go ahead.
but I'm just, I haven't heard someone make a motion.
Okay.
You know, I move to do this, so I don't know what we're voting on.
So you're making a motion?
Yeah, I make the motion that we,
Well, you called
I called the question to end debate.
Yes.
So debate is ended.
Yeah.
Now, you want to make the motion?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
I ended
Oh.
debate.
Okay.
Okay. I'm in between
Just on
the
1A.
first speak here.
Or 9A, right?
So I would make a motion that we change the language on 9A, that the proximity of all proposed marijuana establishments shall not be less than, and I would like to specify that these following buffers should read, the proximity of all proposed marijuana retail establishments shall not be less than.
Is there a second?
There we go. Motion fails.
So the motion fails. Go back to, go ahead.
I support it.
Oh,
Okay, so we have, there's support, okay. So the question is 9A, to insert the word retail after marijuana. So we'll have a roll call vote for Christie.
Okay, we start with Ms. Jackson.
No.
Ms. Kennedy is absent. Mr. King?
No.
Ms. Taylor?
yes.
Ms. Kavanaugh?
No.
Mr. Christie, no. And Mr. McCray?
No. Motion fails, so it will stay as written. The next one here is the number 1,000 feet from operational public private school locations in Redford Township.
To the chair.
Treasurer Kavanaugh.
I don't know who to ask the question, but I know that the Planning Commission did not, in their minutes that we have here, did not say why it is that they increased or placed the 1,000 feet from operational commercial childcare. Does anybody know why?
Public or private?
Yeah, public or private?
Oh, and then the other actual commercial.
Yeah.
And I apologize, the question was on number 1.
Page 3,
Yep.
section 9, number 2.
Number 2. Well, I think when they started talking about it, they were comparing them to schools, because some daycares are like schools now. So they were comparing it that route. And also when they went through their different evaluations, when they looked at the ordinance that was drafted by the board, the draft to send it over to them, it was at 1,000, then it went down to 0, and then they wanted to keep it similar in regards to the schools. That was their main intention. I think that they were just looking at the daycares or schools.
Okay.
Because children are spending time out there at the playgrounds, seeing things like that.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let's move back to number 1 in 9, section 9, 1,000 feet from an operational public or private school located in Redford.
I think the only question was she wanted to remove number 2.
Yeah, I didn't propose any changes to number 1.
No for number 1?
No,
she wanted
Okay.
to
It was
okay,
number
so-
2.
Yeah.
So what is your proposal for number 2?
To the chair,
Trustee Taylor.
I would move that we eliminate number 2 as a buffer zone completely.
That's section 9A.
Section 9A2.
Number 2.
I would like to remove childcare buffer, as they're usually babies and toddlers.
Do we have support for that?
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, second by Clerk Christie. Any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think that a lot of the rationale, Mr. Donovic, are you the same Mr. Donovic that was on our Parks Commission?
Yes.
Is that it? You have the same.
Yes.
I think that some of the same rationale that he used for churches can be applied to these daycare centers because they're popping up in strip malls and, you know, they're coming and going. So I appreciate that.
Any other discussion? Well, I don't necessarily agree we should eliminate that completely. I don't think it should be 1,000 feet for sure. But I'd be willing to go less in feet rather than eliminate. So, but that's all I have to say on it. So there's a motion on the floor, it's been seconded. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, Mr. Christie.
Mr. King?
No.
Ms. Taylor?
Yes.
Ms. Kavanaugh?
No.
Mr. Christie, yes. Ms. Jackson?
No.
And Mr. McCray?
No. Motion fails. Again, I would entertain a motion to make this 500 feet rather than 1,000. I'd be more than happy to do that.
Am I allowed to make another motion on the same topic?
Yeah, I don't, wait, Christie, you make another motion on the same topic as long as it's not the same motion, right?
I believe that the chair, I support the chair's ruling on that.
Okay, the chair says yes, you can make another motion as long
To
as
the
it's not
chair.
the same.
I move that we change the buffer distance on section 9A2 from 1,000 feet to 500 feet.
You have support?
Support.
You have support? Okay, it's been moved and supported to change it from 1,000 to 500. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Ms. Taylor?
Yes.
Ms. Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Christie, yes. Ms. Jackson?
No.
Mr. King?
No.
And Mr. McCray?
Yes. Motion carries. Right. Next is page 4, number 3.
To the chair.
Trustee Taylor.
I request that we remove buffer number 3.
Is there support?
Mr. Chair,
Trustee King.
can she please read the full motion?
Oh,
The motion.
certainly. Buffer number 3 is 500 feet from a religious institution that is defined as tax exempted by the township assessor and located in Redford Township. I request that we remove that buffer, of which we have 45.
Do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second the motion.
Motion's been seconded. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, roll call vote.
Ms. Kavanaugh?
No.
Mr. Christie, yes. Ms. Jackson?
No.
Mr. King?
No.
Ms. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
No. Motion fails.
To the chair.
Trustee Taylor.
I move that we change buffer number 3 to 250 feet for a religious institution.
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been seconded. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, roll call vote.
Mr. Christie, yes. Ms. Jackson?
No.
Mr. King?
No.
Ms. Taylor?
Yes?
Ms. Kavanaugh?
No.
Mr. McCray?
No. Motion fails. Any other discussion on number 3? Okay, so number 3, we'll stay at 500 feet.
To the chair,
Trustee Taylor.
I make a motion to change buffer number 4 from 1,000 feet to 500 feet for a public park with playground equipment located in Redford Township.
Do we have a second on that?
I'll second.
Seconded by Trustee King. Motion is to change the buffer to 500 feet from a public park with playground equipment located in Redford Township. Any other discussion? Roll call vote.
Ms. Jackson?
No.
Mr. King?
No.
Ms. Taylor?
Yes.
Ms. Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Christie, no. And Mr. McCray?
No. Any other discussion on number 4?
To the chair.
Trustee Taylor.
Lastly, number 6, all marijuana establishments permitted in the C2 zoning, or I would request that we change it to M1 light, must be located 2,500 feet from other marijuana retail establishments. That would be in line with the change that you made to page 1.
Okay, so you're saying that all marijuana establishments permitted in C2,
Or M1 light, which are going to be your retail establishments, are the only ones permitted in those zones, must be located 2,500 feet from other marijuana retail establishments. The goal being that you want your retail establishments 2,500 feet from each other, which is in line with the change that you amended on the first page that specified that the 2,500 feet was going to be for retail establishments. So it's
discussion. So why are we going with the M1, you said?
because that's retail. The M1 light is also retail.
Okay.
M1 light industrial is part of your retail establishment overlay. So it's, like I said, it's just putting the language in concert with the language from page 1, saying that the 2,500 foot buffer is for retail establishments.
So you want to eliminate industrial zoning?
It should say M1 light, not, we're not asking that the commercial properties be 2,500 feet from each other. We're asking that the retail establishments be 2,500 feet from each other. That was the change that we've already made on page 1.
Mr. Shipp, can you weigh in on number 6?
Yes, so this does have the impact of maintaining a 2,500-foot buffer between retail establishments, but allows for non-retail establishments to be much denser in our our industrial area is a very small, dense area, and so it would allow them to neighbor each other theoretically, that being the non-retail establishments.
Okay. Questions from the board? Did you make a motion for that?
Did I? Oh.
No, I'm asking you, are you making a motion?
Yeah, I can. I just thought it was housekeeping to match the language on page 1, so I don't know how we can change page 1 and not change this
Okay.
page. 'Cause they
Mr.
would
Dennis?
be,
Okay.
I don't think you changed page 1.
we did.
Yeah, we do.
Oh, you did? I'm sorry. I didn't since I take the notes.
Page 1, yes.
Yes, we added the word retail.
Yep.
For the 2,500-foot buffer.
Yes, we did.
We added the word for retail establishments. So that's exactly what this is doing too. It's just pertaining to retail establishments. So I mean, I can make the
That's correct.
motion,
Yep.
but it's the
So-
same language.
So I guess is what Trustee Taylor, is that correct?
That is correct.
This is just a matter of
This is
making a
making
match.
this
Page
setback match with page 1, yes.
Okay, so does everybody understand that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So then it's going to say permitted in C2 zoning or M1 light must be located 2,500 feet From other retail marijuana.
from other marijuana retail establishments, right? So it's the same language carried over onto this page.
Right.
Right.
So you have that change as well, Tony?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Any other talk or discussion about this particular document? Okay, so I guess my next question is that
We need to
want
move
to
to
do the
approve.
other one, or do you want to vote on this document as amended?
To the chair, yeah.
Through the chair, okay, go ahead, trustee.
I would move that we approve the first reading of the marijuana zoning ordinance amendments 152N permitted uses for certain limited marijuana establishments, Article 10, 12, 13, and 14.
As amended.
As amended. Thank you.
Do we have a second?
Support.
Okay, so the motion is to approve the first reading of the marijuana zoning ordinance amendment 152N, permitted uses for certain limited marijuana establishments, Article 10, 12, 13, and 14 as amended. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Ms. Taylor,
Yes.
Ms. Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Mr. Christie, yes. Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. McCray.
Yes, motion carries. Now, it's the end of it. It's just
All over the map.
all right. So let's move on to the next item, unfinished 2.
All right, council, so as I referenced, this is the regulatory ordinance that would be implemented at the same time as the zoning ordinance. This just provides for certain policing functions, application functions, just kind of the administration of this that does not need to be located within the zoning ordinance. So we did include this as a red line. The changes were really just making this document consistent with the changes that have been made through this process to the zoning ordinance. And so I can quickly go through them. When we look at page 3, which is under authorized marijuana establishment, well, it starts on page 2 and goes into page 3. Previously, we had looked at potentially using the point system, so that included the limitations on the number of licenses. That's not necessary now because this is the regulatory portion, and they still have to comply with all of the zoning portions, which are the setbacks, which set those limits. So that's the primary changes that are made throughout subsection, or through section 3, part 1. And then I think the important changes to this are part 3, because this does get into what I talked about with the application process. And I agree, we had really good public comment. I really appreciate that 100%. There was some comment regarding, there's no guarantee that we won't have litigation if we use first come, first serve. Please make sure the record is clear. I have said there is no guarantee we will not have litigation. These things absolutely happen. I've done it in most communities in the area. But it is my thought that with the process that we've set forth, as well as what I already indicated, which is participation of the police department, using surveillance, every other tool that we can possibly use, that the first come, first serve process will allow for a quicker implementation and will reduce litigation as compared to a traditional scored process. And so what we've done is we referenced that we would begin accepting applications within 120 days unless this board subsequently modifies that, which would be based upon good cause, which would mean we'd need to come back and explain whatever impediments we may have in going forward with a start date. And I do think that 120 days gets us out there so that it's a little bit warmer weather because they'll be waiting outside. And Yeah, I did reference the changes that we made, that only one application may be submitted by a person or an entity in line at any time. They're free to stand in line multiple times, or multiple people are free to stand in line, but each individual in line can only submit one application.
Mr. Chubb, if I may,
Yes.
if I'm in line, can I submit an application for somebody else? Or does the person that's in line have to be the person submitting the application for them?
Yeah, I mean,
So can he go stand in line for me and put my application in?
Generally, I mean, the answer is yes. There is a business that's come about that is assisting in this process of filing applications, and so if you are an LLC that wanted to submit an application, I think you could request the services of a third party. So this would not prohibit that. We certainly could look at making those changes prior to second reading. Again, I think I referenced this. If we do want to make any changes to these ordinances between first and second reading, that's wholly permissible. And so we could certainly look into that again. That could create another layer for potential litigation, just that the assertion that somebody wasn't properly aligned with an LLC or had an ownership interest when they were in line, and therefore they should be knocked out of line, could become a thing. So just something to consider.
So I need to know.
So the way that this process works then is that if an application is deemed to have an incomplete portion, that the clerk's office then notifies the applicant, and they have 7 days to supplement whatever that incomplete portion is. Otherwise, their timestamp is voided, and they would be taken out of the buffering system and gone. They would go back. They would go to the end.
How long does the clerk have to notify the said applicant, and how does that happen?
It's after the clerk notifies them, or whatever time they do notify them, there's 7 days.
From whatever the time of notification is.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different ways. These applications can look a million different ways. So going back to Pontiac, when you have a scoring system, I saw multiple applications. I don't know if these guys are out there. Some of them probably are. A lot of those applications were well in excess of 1,000 pages, 2,000 pages. I mean, there was this much information. Review took years. And so it's because everything was being reviewed at the local level. When you use a process like we are using, the vast majority of the review has already been completed by the Marijuana Regulatory Agency and through Laura in order to be able to be authorized at the state level. And so we rely upon them. They do essentially the exact same review we would do internally or through a contractor. And so these are going to be a lot easier to review. We've already began drafting the application. It's nothing like some of the more complex processes. And so the hope is certainly that the clerk can review these applications fairly quickly, because each time an application is reviewed, a pinpoint, and they're determined to have everything in place, they've paid their fee, everything like that, that then sets the first pinpoint. We then go to the second application. If it's within the first pinpoint, it is not allowed to be reviewed, and so forth. So then the third application becomes the second application until the entire map is filled in such that that there are no more viable spots. And that being said, this is somewhat of an ongoing basis, and so we do retain the applications for a period of a year, because things change, whether it be licensure is removed, revoked, withdrawn, or other changes. Like in other communities, I've seen churches being bought and closed down so that they are no longer their own buffer, and it creates a new space. So this is a living map, and we continue to review it at the clerk's office level through Mike's department hugely, things like that. on to page 4, we also included another prohibition for application, which, I'm sorry, actually, we'll go back to the top. As I noted, we will keep these applications on file for a year to determine if there is, if it again becomes eligible based upon changes in location of other types of venues. The result is that we would then retain $1,000 of the $5,000 application fee as part of that administrative fee. And so we did change that, the holding of the $1,000 administrative fee, we added that. At the bottom of page 4, we also added a prohibition for application if an individual or entity has been found responsible for operating a marijuana establishment without a license within the township. We were able to eliminate a lot of Section 5 as it relates to the review process, because we just referenced that the review process for the necessary application, or for the application, is really limited to the SUP review process. So long as they conform to the special use permit standards, they would conform to this, and that is going to be the process that'll be used to determine their licensure.
Mr. Chair.
Trustee King.
Quickly. On page 9, they also talk about the clerk distributing the application to like 5 other department heads, the fire department, so-and-so, and they review it to see if the application is complete. That's another level of review?
Yeah, that's correct. So when you do have these, you do have to make sure that there's compliance for the fire marshal, compliance for building. I think it would need to, I believe we have it going to Treasury to make sure that they aren't in default. And so that is part of the process.
Okay. Now, and along the line of that question, in the clerk's office, it just seems like this might be a whole nother job or a position for someone to take care of this and look over these applications for a year as they keep rolling in. I don't know.
I would think it would be, I mean, you're going to have your influx of retail establishments in the beginning, and that process is going to take, I would guess, a number of months. Hopefully 3 months would be reasonable to be able to review the applications, just depending on, I mean, these are very sophisticated applicants. They know exactly what to put in. They very typically are very thorough, and they're not going to put them in, in a place that isn't eligible, for example. And so it does have to go through that process as a matter of course, but I've found that generally it's a quick review because they will be thorough, and so it's an easy determination to make. But it does, I mean, it will require substantial staff in the clerk's office on a contracted or otherwise, temporary basis.
Thank you.
But once we do get through that, then typically it goes down a lot. We would have the non-retail trickle in, and it would be able to be done, and I'm not going to speak for the clerk's office, but generally it's going to be a lot less of a extra burden than the initial thrust.
Okay, one last question. On that line kind of too, what is the conditional license? What's the purpose of the conditional license?
Yeah, so your conditional license says you're pre-qualified, you meet all the basics, but we're not going to give them a license to operate until they then, let's say, for example, they showed us property rights by virtue of an option agreement. We're not going to give them a license until they've exercised the option, they've built the facility, the building department has given them a certificate of occupancy, and the state has given them final licensure to operate in that completed facility. that's when we give the full license to
Okay, so
them.
conditional licensee can have a property, but still not went through the full cycle of his licensure.
They will not be able to operate on the property until they have the full license.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yep.
To the chair.
Treasurer Kavanaugh.
Just for informational purposes, I wanted to let people know that many times with, anytime you get a liquor license as well, a lot of the department heads are contacted as well to see if they're in good standing here in the township.
Very similar process.
Yeah.
Yep.
To the chair,
Trustee Jackson.
just for clarification, the applications are done on a first-come, first-served basis. Is there a amount of time that we have to review those and give them a yes or no that you passed on the first initial review?
There is not. I mean, when I would never put a deadline against ourselves for the review, and that creates what is an inference under the law of a reasonable amount of time to review. What we have done to try to minimize the review time is to the extent that there's a determination by the clerk or any other reviewer, I guess, that there is a document lacking, that from the time that the clerk notifies the applicant, they have 7 days response time. And that way we don't have applications lingering out where we wonder if they're ever going to get us back a site plan, for example, or, something along those lines.
And you indicated that you could expect an influx of mostly retail initially. Now, if I got one application and I'm reviewing it, and I review that application, they pass everything, and I say, okay, you're approved. And then none of the other people have to be reviewed before I say, yes, your application has been approved. It's not contingent on anybody else's.
Yeah, no, it would kind of be the opposite, where everybody else is contingent upon theirs, because once you say yes to that, then it establishes the bubble around that property.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Very welcome.
And I did speak with Police Captain Burns. We had just a quick conversation about about some of the renewal process, and he was concerned about the ability of them to perform certain functions. So we may need to tweak the language very minorly before the second reading, but I'm still working with the police department on that. And then page 13 is really the last big change to this document, and I wanted to make sure that there's a due process component within the ordinance where we would reference the bases for revocation of a license if a business comes into noncompliance, or from initial denial if they believe that we wrongfully determined buffers, for example. And this sets that forth, that there's an administrative process, and then that needs to be signed off by the supervisor, and then they can appeal to this board in writing within 14 days. And that's a necessary due process component to make sure that our ordinance withstands scrutiny.
Chair.
Trustee Jackson.
I think you answered this, and I just want to be sure that we took all of the limits off and changed them to no limits to make it less likely that there would be litigation.
Yes, I mean, in removing the limits based on a sheer, quantifiable number and moving it to be regulating through the zoning ordinance, we removed the process for application grading, which just has really been subject of a lot of the litigation in this field.
Now, we do have a protocol on what happens if a license is denied or revoked. Is there an established protocol to handle a facility that's caught operating without a license? Was that another, under like the police?
That's more, yeah, that's more under our police powers generally. And I think that what we've primarily dealt with within the township, which is struggling like a lot of other communities are, with caregiver grows, which are outside of the purview of recreational marijuana facilities. And those are the individuals that can grow plants for themselves and 5 patients for a total of 72 plants per person. But they typically, under the law, they're allowed to co-locate within a facility. And so without the township potentially even having notice, you could have a very large grow facility located within the community. There are certain requirements. This has changed over time. Early on, case law said that we couldn't even essentially allow them to register with the township. That's all changed so that we do have a little more authority to at least know where they are, even if we can't regulate them. And Mike Dennis and I are certainly working on that to try to figure out, at least so we can put them on a map. Frankly, it's fairly easy to locate them by working with the power company and looking at water bills, but we can register them as well.
My next question. Is there any kind of regulation that requires a safety compliance facility based on how many other facilities you have in a township? If I have 10 facilities.
No, that's a great question. Yeah, because one thing that the state law does as well, you know, for example, while we currently don't have any safety facilities or transporter facilities within the township, it prohibited us from prohibiting them from traversing our township. And so there's no requirement that everyone is insular within the township so that you can have it vertically integrated within the township so that it's grown here, tested here, transported from a township-based transporter and sold here, because the license, once you have a local license, you can serve all local licenses within the state. And so there are a very small number of a lot of those facilities as compared to the number of retailers. There's a lot of large growers, a few transporters and testing facilities, and then they proliferate into the retail facilities.
So no.
Yeah, that's correct. We cannot require a minimum amount of them to be within the community.
Okay, thank you.
I know that we talked about this maybe, and I don't know exactly where, I think it's in this document, that if we identify right now that somebody's illegally in the township growing, does that prohibit them from getting a license?
I think the answer is no. Let me go back to that section. No?
No, I thought you just said that was something you added.
Well, I want to clarify exactly. If we identify they're growing, if they're a caregiver, they're allowed to.
Well, I understand. No, that doesn't make it illegal.
If they are illegally growing and if they've been found in a court to be illegally growing, yes. That is a prohibition we have added from them applying for a license.
Okay, that's what I just want to make sure.
Yes.
Because I don't want anybody to already be there and kind of just jump in and other people are trying to get in and do it the right way.
Yes.
So, other questions from the board?
To the chair.
Trustee Taylor.
There's only one change that I would request on this document, just to be, if you go to page 6, number 11, which is the marijuana establishment operating hours, I have yet to see a single retail establishment be limited on the hours specifically for Sunday. So I would request that language be changed to, I make a motion that we change number 11's, the marijuana establishment shall operate?
Operate.
Yeah, that language just makes sense.
Shall on operate. Oh,
Shall on operate? Shall operate?
Yes.
Move on. Between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. daily. I've not seen any cannabis dispensary have different hours from day to day. I mean, some open at 8, some open at 9, some close at 9, some close at 10, but the hours across all 7 days are the same. So I would request that we change those to 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. daily.
So just because I don't know, I would like to know, do liquor stores, are they not allowed to be open before noon on Sunday?
That law was changed many years ago. They previously were prohibited, but that is no longer the case unless there's a local regulation.
Right.
The city of Flint was the last one to have one, and they removed
Okay,
it
so that's
7 weeks
gone.
ago. That's correct.
So this, by changing this, this would not be, it would be in line with what we're doing with party stores or liquor stores or whatever?
That's correct.
Okay.
And with licensure, as I've seen it statewide, I think you're correct.
Okay. You make a motion?
I did,
Okay, did we get a second?
not yet.
Second.
Okay, a second by trustee Jackson. Any discussion? On number 11 on page 6. Hearing no discussion, roll call vote for the change of a marijuana establishment shall operate between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. daily. Or 9 p.m., sorry. Got to cross off 8. There we go. 9 p.m. daily is the motion.
Ms. Taylor?
Yes.
Ms. Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Christie, yes. Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes. Motion carries. Anything else on this document?
I'm over it.
Okay, seeing there's no other discussion about this document, what's the pleasure of the board?
We have to give, we have to
Oh,
give.
public comment on this one?
Public comment.
Well, you can give public comment. Yeah, sure, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Thank you, trustee Jackson. Anybody have public comment? If you do, please come line up over here. Okay.
I'm going to ask this, bother you folks with this, but
Okay.
I'm just wondering, the American Bank is completely vacant on 5 Mile Road there in the DDA district. I'm wondering if this ordinance prevents anyone from moving in there and deciding that they would like to sell or dispense marijuana in the middle of the downtown area.
Yeah, the zoning ordinance, there's
Zone?
none on 5 Mile at all.
No, it will not happen on 5 Mile.
There's none allowed on 5 Mile at all.
At all?
At all.
And that's in the ordinance?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
My question.
Okay, any other public comment? Seeing none,
To the chair.
pleasure of the board.
I move that we approve the first reading of the marijuana establishments ordinance to authorize the operation and provide regulations ordinance.
Support.
As amended.
As amended.
No. Support.
And it's been supported. So the motion is to approve the marijuana establishment ordinance, authorize the operation and provide regulations ordinance as amended. Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Christie, yes. Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. King? Yes.
Ms. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes, motion carried. Thank you for everybody that stayed through all that. Okay.
They're asking for a 5-minute people.
Okay, it's been requested, we'll have a 5-minute intermission here to allow everybody to take care of the business.
Thank you.
And stretch. Oh, yeah, before you lock up. Yeah.
What?
A smidge.
It's only, it's 9:30. This is long.
Oh my gosh, is it really?
This is gonna be the longest meeting ever.
Ever.
No way. I had no idea.
I see everybody.
All right, so getting back on subject.
Wow.
Get up there.
Moving along, Director Dennis, please come to the stand.
Slow motion.
Want the food court?
Yeah.
Denied.
I said food truck, and I said food court.
Food court, mobile food service. We haven't eaten either.
Mr. Supervisor, Honorable Board, I will try to make this as fast as feasibly I can.
Okay.
But very slowly. All right.
Slap it.
So we have been working on this for some time, and I'd like to thank John Clark, Steve Hitchcock, and Tony Chubb, and the supervisor, and Teresa also for helping out with this. We put this together a few weeks ago, and then we had a couple different drafts. We also had Jason Smith from Wade Trim, our planner, look at this. This has no zoning implications, but we wanted to have Jason's input on it as well. We feel as though we put together a very good ordinance here for food trucks. It's to the point. It covers many different facets of food trucks, again, from the services, to the permitting, from the various locations, things of that nature, and exemptions and things of that nature. So, so we did a very nice job, tried to cover all different angles. Something that we went through and then read it a little bit, but I guess just to go through this just a tad, I'm just going to touch base on a couple small things. On the first section, it's basically just talking regarding the licensing is for 1 calendar year. So the license does expire every December 31st. It does, and a lot of this also, just to let you know, is a boilerplate from a lot of communities use some of the same language. So we reviewed months ago here in front of the board. I think we had about 6 or 8 that we looked at. A lot of them have the same boilerplate language, and we tweaked some of that, obviously, for ourselves. We've added a few about no outside seating, but we did say that they can't have any tables bigger than 36 by 36 to hold the condiments. You want to make sure they have a place to get their forks and spoons and knives and napkins and things of that nature. That was added in after we did some of this. That there was a 7-foot clearance that we added umbrellas, that they could use an umbrella, because say they want to have umbrella outside over their table. That was something that we did add in. We did make sure that we had something about loudspeakers and too much noise. Waste containers, if you don't put it down, they won't pick it up. So make sure we have a good, very good adequate language regarding waste containers and spilling and picking them up after themselves. Outdoor amplification, flashing and blinking. They cannot leave their food trucks or carts unattended. We will also work with our fire department and do background checks. A lot of these, including ourselves, that no food or service trucks, and I'm sorry, I'm on page 2 right now, which is section 50, or it's one here, number P, or item P, no food trucks will be operated between hours 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. So, and once they are done, they must then remove their vehicle off-site. They cannot just leave their vehicle sitting where they're at. Beverages, and we talked about vendors are prohibited from selling alcoholic beverages, contraband goods, drug paraphernalia, fireworks, electrical items, food items that have not been approved in writing by the Wayne County Health Department. Then we go through the application process on page 2 at the bottom. They're going to, their state licenses, description of food, proposed hours of operation. We made sure that they had adequate insurance coverages, signed statements, and this is where it'll come into the here at the board. Item 3, talking about how many permits to issue. Then in section 5053 location, we did state that portable food trucks cannot be located within 1,000 feet of a township special event or within 50 feet of another food truck. We also have stated that a portable food truck, this is item 3, cannot be located within 300 feet of a building serving food for the consumption on the premises. So in essence, 300 feet from a restaurant, an existing restaurant, brick and mortar.
To the chair.
Trustee Taylor.
Mike, How does that measure from the marquee, which we often have food trucks, to Sandy's?
Township events would not be, are exempted. Township-sponsored events
Oh.
are, it's in the
So
next
if we
section.
invite a food truck to a special event, that's exempt?
Township special events are exempted. yeah.
Got it.
Okay, I
We
get
did.
Why?
It's in the ordinance.
Okay.
Why is
that's so good.
I mean, if we have the
Parties and
the
stuff.
festival and all that,
Yeah,
that's a special event. It's like, why would you not want food trucks around our events?
We do.
Well,
We do.
They are,
It's
yeah.
in here.
You're saying any other time? No.
For our events,
Our-
township events, yes.
But that's exactly what I'm saying, for our township
No limit.
events. Why would we not have food trucks?
We will.
No, that's it.
But am I reading this wrong?
Yes, ma'am.
Shall not be located within 1,000 feet of a
private-
special event.
Private food truck. This is for the, on a commercial setting.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
I guess my question would be, my question would be attached to Kim's. Let's say somebody rents the marquee and they wanted a food truck. What's the space between the marquee and Sandy's?
And could they have it
I'd
for a
have to
private
measure that.
event?
Okay,
Yes.
get on that.
Speak to that, somebody.
I don't know off the top of my head, I have my Google.
Okay, I just wondered.
Because that's important.
So I can answer Linda's question really quick. For those ones, so when we do special events or activities like the festival, a lot of times what we do is we bring on specific food trucks. So what we don't want is outside food trucks now pulling away from those food trucks that we brought specifically for our event. So we don't want those bringing separate private food trucks to, you know, say, hey, I'm going to set up outside this perimeter, and they pull all of the business away for those that are actually for the
Okay, so
that
we
scheduled
do,
event.
there will be some.
Correct,
You
yep,
can't
it's
have
just saying that we
others.
couldn't have private ones that are competing basically with
With
our
ours.
stuff.
Got
Yep.
it.
The
Okay, that
other,
makes sense.
yeah, and then the other instance when, if they're doing a private event, so for instance in our parks, those are more considered as a caterer, so they would not be allowed to sell to the public. That person would be utilizing them as a caterer for their event. So if I decided instead of, I don't want to use, if I wanted to use a specific business, let's say I wanted to have Sandy's cater my event, instead of having that, because they're brick and mortar and they bring over the dishes, I would have a food truck there that would be catering my private event. So that's been something we've seen over the last several years in our parks and the Parks Commission. And their aspect has said, as long as it's just for their private event and it's only catering and they're paying for it and they're not selling to any outside business, it wouldn't be competing with anything, just like they would bring in their own. Does that make sense?
So then the 300 square feet.
350.
350 feet from a business, hold tight, you might need this. So let me just, like an example, so it would be like, back when I used to work in an office, they had roach coaches that would come and park outside your building for lunchtime and sell you food. Is that to say, like, you couldn't have one of these trucks come into town hall parking lot and sell food to the people that work here on any given day because it's within 300 feet of Sandy's? That's how this would pertain?
Well, it also states in here, number 11, food service trucks or carts should not be allowed in any township municipally owned facility or parks unless it's for a township special event. Or in such cases, for private catered event, as Teresa was saying, not open to public, not selling to the public.
Okay.
So we just couldn't have, just, in my opinion, that would be a special event. That's just a food truck parking out here and doing their thing, so
So that's a no-no.
they couldn't do it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, and I do have a question because our dear friend Sandy, who's put money into her building and stayed in the township for many years, there's a parking situation back there that the lot behind her doesn't belong to her. So is the back of Sandy's, and I don't know, but the back of Sandy's building to the road, is that 300 feet? Or is it
It's less. It's less.
So that means
You could not have a food truck out there.
on Sandy's parking lot? Because it's too close?
Yes.
You're sure?
Possible.
Okay.
Those parking spots are 20 feet.
Okay.
So she owns the back part of, she owns her parking, let's say, for example, on her building. She owns the parking on this side of the building.
On the back side?
On the side and the back side. She owns that side of the alley.
Yeah.
The parking lot itself, you got for the 40, 60, 80, 100, 120 to the street, 150 feet max to the street curb.
Okay, so
Because each parking spot would be 20 deep, there's 1, 2, 3 parking spots, now you're going back there. 60 feet, you got your drive, your 2 drives, let's say that's 30 feet, so, yeah.
I just want to make sure that with having the food trucks, which is a beautiful thing, and I think it serves a purpose, I don't want to do anything to damage good businesses in our township, take away business from somebody just going to pull up there, make a couple of bucks, and drive away.
Yep.
You know, as long as they're far enough away from our businesses is reasonable, then I'm okay with that.
Yes. One of the things that we also had on here that was discussed from the supervisor, I'd like to point out that we did clarify, I apologize, I'm missing a page here for some reason.
Because,
Yeah.
I'm missing
I bet you're
page
missing
two.
page 3.
I'm missing page 2.
I'm missing page 2, which
Yeah.
I was like, wait, what? 4.
Missing,
2 and 4.
Well,
Yeah,
oh,
me
no,
too.
there's 5 pages, what?
I'm
there is
missing
5
2 and
pages.
4.
Oh, you got scanned there, oh. Okay. Do you need me to,
Yeah, I'm missing page 2 too.
Yep,
Yeah, the board members.
2 and 4.
I just sent it out, it was, I mean, I have all my
No.
pages.
Well, I have all mine, but I printed them out on my computer when we did this.
Okay.
The one that I printed off the packet is missing a
It's
page.
missing
Missing
pages.
2 and 4.
Yeah, 2 and 4.
That's why I was so
Channels 2 and
confused.
4.
Do you want?
Like,
Hey, wait a second.
First reading, come back.
yeah, we could come back, we could just approve the first reading and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
come back
well,
with the
yeah,
whole
like,
thing.
I also wanted to just to point out that we'd also created,
I got all 5 because I printed mine off because I
He didn't
worked
get
on
it
this
out of the
project.
e-packet.
Yeah, it's not the E.
I took this
He
off.
printed off the E-packet, it doesn't
Yeah.
have 2 and 4.
It doesn't matter. Okay.
No, it's like,
No.
yeah, we're
We're
good,
the second
we're good.
reading.
We're good.
If we need it, I'll pass it down.
All right.
If it's something of contention.
one of the things I wanted to add, yeah, mine are all here, is that also for food trucks, you also see some, that'll just pop on a vacant lot.
Yeah.
So we clarify that any trucker, I'm sorry, this is on page 4.
Okay, page 4.
You know?
Sorry.
Okay.
Food service trucks without written permission, to have written permission provided on company letterhead from the property owner or approved tenant, who must be operating a fully licensed and township building department permitted business. A property with no occupant or a fully licensed and permitted business cannot be the site of a mobile food service truck. So you just can't have somebody who they like to do is just pull up on a vacant property, on a lot or a business and just start selling. They cannot do that. It has to be an approved occupied business.
Right.
So a business is actually doing this, not just, let's say, for example, as John brought it up, they can't just park on, Comerica Bank's property and start selling once it goes vacant.
Right. We have I know we have at least one vacant lot on Plymouth Road that's next to a party store, and I think another business on the other side. We don't want people to go pull up food trucks and have a potential damaging businesses that are paying taxes and been there for a while. And we don't want to have people who own vacant properties pulling up, and rather than selling their property, they're just renting it out for food trucks. We want occupancy in buildings, so that they can't just use that.
I must point out one other thing on your page 3, though.
Oh, page 3, okay.
That was the section with the X's. Mr. Supervisor, that's
Yes.
part of the, number 3 on page 3. The township shall issue no more than X active portable food service truck or cart licenses for any calendar year. Commercial industrial properties are permitted to have no more than 6 days in a calendar year for which permitted portable service trucks or carts are located in the parcel. And any portable service trucks or carts cannot be located in a parcel for more than 3 days. But the reason I put X's because that was up to the board to decide
how many
active portable service truck licenses that you want to allow. It wasn't for us to determine, and this is something you decide now or come back with your recommendations on the second reading. But it was something that some communities have been limiting, say, 6, 12, whatever. How many active would you allow? So we don't issue 50, say.
To the chair,
Trustee Jackson.
unless I missed it, how much is the license?
That was the other thing that we had to set that I don't think that we had in there because it was going to be determined by the board.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we don't know yet.
Yeah, that we do.
Well,
So I just
just wanted to point that out. That was something we were going to be working with the board on.
So,
Mike,
go ahead.
Yes.
I guess, can you give us recommendations in, let's say, other communities, basically our size, how many they have had, and maybe go from there?
I can send something out.
Something,
Yeah,
I
there's-
mean, so, the minimum and then the maximum and somewhere in the middle.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's no problem. We can see how many others have done.
Yeah.
I can, and the reason that it's kind of interesting this is coming out right now is that like the city of Dearborn is trying to pass a new ordinance because they're having a food truck issue, having too many food trucks.
Really?
Horrible problem right now. And they're reducing where they can be placed, where they can, how many licenses they're giving, so on and so forth. That's
interesting.
That came out in the last 60 to 90 days. I know when you drive Michigan Avenue or Ford Road, they're just all over the place. And I think the businesses are complaining that, hey, I pay tax and this guy's just rolling up and he's selling food and he's taking off and, there's no tax base. So that's active right now. We're trying to watch what they were doing to see what we do, but they don't have an active ordinance yet. But yeah, that's not a problem. I can send something out. We can look at it. It should be between here and there.
Right, thank you.
No problem.
Okay. And then when we do that, we're going to also ask
Look at the
about,
price.
find out what other communities are charging for
Right.
licensing.
Yeah, I had that, and I will find it, yes.
And I think we should compare it to what we're charging for business licensing here too. Because I don't know exactly what that number is.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
That should be established by motion of the board and not in the ordinance.
Well, yeah, but it could still be in there, but we,
Well, not the specific amount.
Because that could change.
yeah, but we can say.
Well, we would do that at the same time.
Right,
Okay.
yep, that should be in the ordinance. that
No,
says
it should
that
be
we
in the ordinance,
set
No,
the
separate.
price
But it should state that the fee would be established
by the township board. Yes. Okay,
But learn that, and then we just, on the very back, just to finish up, is we did have a fee schedule, a fine schedule. If there was some people, and there are going to be some folks who don't want to or not understanding that we do have permits, we will have a civil infraction fine on here, $250 for the first offense and $500 for each additional offense within the 12 months. So if we had a business that just kept wanting to do it on the weekends and we see them, we'll take photos and we'll issue them a coupon.
Mr. Chair,
trustee King.
Mr. Dennis,
Yes, sir.
best case scenario, how would the food trucks operate? Where would they operate? Just say we have one or two. Where would they operate and how would it go best case scenario? What would we see?
You have a person right now who likes to have their Cinnabon food truck at the gas station at Plymouth End Beach Daily. That's one who could come in and he would be able to do it.
Okay.
Gas stations are kind of the area right now that seem to be having more of them. If you ever travel to Joy Beach Daily, there's one parked there.
Telegraph and Schoolcraft.
Telegraph.
That's Cinnabon, that gas station.
It's the same, he travels around.
Yeah.
But there is one just parked at the gas station on the Dearborn Heights side at Joy Beach Daily. One of the things also in here is that once they're off property, they have to either go to the health department location. So if their address is 8 Mile Road, they got to go back to that or to their commissary.
Right.
They can't just go park at someone's house.
Yeah.
That was about taking you come and go. And we did have in there, you can't have this on a residential property.
I saw that.
But you have to vacate by 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. They can't be parked on the street. You cannot private sell. I guess it would be a private event. But we did add that in there. So if someone did want to have a high school graduation, so.
They can't block the sidewalk.
Can't block the sidewalk or the street. They can't be in the street either.
Yeah.
They got to be on the driveway. They cannot
in the
be
driveway.
anywhere on the government right of way.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
So no
To the chair.
Trustee Taylor.
Just questions, just because I'm missing page 3 about the locations, or page 4. Are they allowed, like at softball games, to park over at Claude Allison? No, they're not allowed on park property? Okay.
Like,
They have to get approval.
So they could apply through the Parks Commission if they wanted to find out what the softball schedule is and park out there during softball games. They could potentially get permission to do that. If they allow that. Okay.
but, and, yeah, so other than that, I think it's covered a lot. A lot of good info on here covering us, so.
I just am so glad that we have a hard document in front of us, and it's just a couple of tweaks, and we will have an ordinance. So,
Yes, sir.
thank you to everybody that worked on it. Yes,
Public comment.
I didn't ask for public comment, okay.
You're going to get it.
So after reading through this ordinance and realizing that Mike included food carts, right now the licensing through the clerk's office allows for mobile ice cream trucks and mobile carts, where you would come in, get permission from the property owner to be able to park your cart, like at this old Spartan. That guy's gone away, but it's allowed. So with this new ordinance, does that then take that license away from the clerk's office?
I suspect it.
It would.
I was going to talk.
Okay.
Yes, I do suspect it would, because it would be considered a mobile food cart.
New processes.
So, and then it would only be, limited up to the days in here then.
Okay. Any more discussion? We still got 2 more to go. So, would somebody like to make a motion?
To the chair.
Trustee Jack?
I move that we approve the first reading of proposed ordinance amendment, Chapter 50, Article 3, Section 50-51, mobile food service as amended.
Support.
Okay. Been moved and supported. The motion is to approve the first reading of the proposed ordinance amendment, Chapter 50, Article 3, Section 50-51- mobile food service as amended. Need roll call on that?
It's never wrong to have a roll
Okay, let's
call.
roll call it. We're here all night anyway.
Mr. Christie, yes. Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr.
King?
Yes.
Ms. Taylor?
Yes.
Ms. Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Mike, and everybody that worked on it.
Yes, thank you all.
Yes, yes. Next, Mike Dennis.
This will be a fast.
That's what you said last time.
This is 3 paragraphs.
Okay, well.
So, just let you, so what's going on is we've been having issues where when there is a court action in regards to a eviction, since it's not an ordinance, the bailiff or whomever will place the contents, because we don't stipulate a dumpster, just at the curb. And sometimes the landlord then doesn't wait, he expects us to pick it up, he expects someone else to pick it up, and next thing you know, you got all these contents from the house, from driveway to driveway, from curb to sidewalk. And we're seeing more and more of this right now. I think that landlords are getting a little lazy, and they expect Redford to hold their hand, that they expect GFL to pick it up. We do not pick up move-out piles. They don't want to contact GFL, and GFL says, yeah, I'll do it for this amount of money. Oh my God, that's great, do it. Or they'll ask us to do it, and we don't have the staff to do it. So after this has been going on for a little while, I did speak with Matt Sawicki and Jeff Corbin, and we came up with, to add this in, and also working with Steve Hitchcock, that we wanted to add language about a dumpster will be part of the order
that when the judgment comes through, a dumpster must be on site and no longer will be put to corner. It has to be on site. So this is language actually that a couple other cities also have used, and we just tweaked it a smidge. But it does state that the tenant's personal property should be placed and disposed of only in the movable dumpster container required by the section, provided the movable dumpster container shall be on the type which will allow access from its side as opposed to access solely through the top of the container. So, they'll be able to put it through the side, through the top, or not the top. So we're just looking to have a dumpster on site. We do no longer want to have them just going into the corner, because then all of a sudden you get people who are picking through it. Next thing you know, it's on the sidewalk, it's on the front lawn, and no one's keeping tabs on the house other than us, and then you get all the social media blasts.
Yes.
Which Mike doesn't like.
Yes.
Well, none of us.
So, but this is all it is. It's just saying that the movable dumpster container part of the section shall be removed from the owner's property within 48 hours of its placement. So if it's on there on a Monday, they better move their stuff out. They better have it out within 48 hours. So hopefully once this does pass, we'll give it to the court. It will become ordinance for them to use as well when there are evictions.
To the chair.
May I have a copy of the ordinance, please, that you're proposing?
Just let me do my meeting, please. Go ahead. Treasurer
I move
Kavanaugh.
to approve Department of Public Services Building Department Amendment to Ordinance Chapter 22, Article 11, Inspection of Rental Dwellings.
Support.
Support by trustee Jackson. The motion is to approve the first reading of the proposed ordinance amendment, Chapter 22, Article 11, Inspection of Rental Dwellings. Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Ms. Taylor?
Yes.
Come on, guys.
Ms. Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Christie, yes. Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Director Stokes,
She'll be quick.
a new face.
I was so excited all these people were here today. I thought they were here for our parks proposal.
Right? Pickleball? Come on, man.
So before you, you have the memo to request the approval of the attached proposal for professional services provided by Wade Trim
Hold on a
for.
minute. You guys, if you're gonna talk about that, you need to go out in the hall, okay? Because we have a meeting to finish up.
Please.
Thank you. Start again, please. I missed.
Okay, so before you have the proposal for the professional engineering services provided by Wade Trim for a topographic survey, construction documents, and bidding assistance in conjunction with the pickleball courts over at Handy Park. So this is a project that we have been talking about for a while. This has been approved by the Parks Commission, and by their recommendation, it's coming in front of you. This will be the first start of the pickleball courts that we want to bring over to Handy Park, and to tear out the existing tennis courts and then redo all of those. We know that these tennis courts have needed some repair over some time, and we have been really looking to bring some pickleball to the township, and this was a perfect site for it. So all of the funds for this will be paid out of the MEDC grant, part of the $750,000 that the township received through the state. So I'm looking for approval.
Questions from the board?
To the chair.
Trustee Jackson.
Director Stokes, do you know what the total cost of this project, the estimated total cost of your project is going to be?
So when we originally wrote the grant for the Spark grant, we're basing it off of that. We purposely wrote that grant for $1 million. It's not going to be that much because that was adding on additional cost to the project. Part of the work with Wade Trim will to bring it down to real cost for what we're looking to do right now. So that is part of this proposal, is they will be getting all those cost estimates and what the cost will be, and then we'll start the bidding documents and be able to go out and find that cost.
So at this point,
And
you
we
know it's going to be less than $1 million, but you don't know?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So, and we do have the additional funding. So in part of that Spark grant, we also included some pathway improvements. Well, we do have additional pathway funds through the same MEDC grant. So those will be paid in a different fund as well. So we're hoping, I mean, I can't estimate at this point just because they're really trying to narrow down the scope of work, and that's part of why they're doing this topographic study, just to make sure, because we know it's right next to the residential neighborhood. We want to make sure that they're screening for sound and stuff like that as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
To the chair.
Trustee Taylor.
That was, just to follow up, I just wanted to clarify that the MEDC grant, you expect to cover the full cost of the construction of the
That's what we're
project.
hoping to. So, and we'll know, obviously, that's the whole point of bidding, is to go out and find, we know how much money that we have to allocate and spend for the project, but depending on the availability of contractors, what the scope of work is, that's when we go out to bid, we'll be able to see if that's something that we can afford, or if there's any additional funding that we might have in our parks funds that can accommodate that.
Thank you.
Good. Any other discussion? What's the pleasure of the board?
To the chair.
Trustee Taylor.
I move that we approve the proposal for professional services to Wade Trim for topographic survey, construction documents, and bidding assistance for the renovation of Handy Park tennis courts into pickleball courts not to exceed $35,800.
Okay, well, do we get a second on that?
Support.
Okay, well, I would like to offer a friendly amendment to say that the money's going to come out of the MEDC grant for park improvements.
That's at 38.5, that's coming out of the MEDC as well?
Correct, yep, and I verified with them that could come out of that.
Okay,
And they said
brilliant,
yes.
okay.
So-
Yes, amendment accepted.
Okay.
Motion still stands.
Okay, so the motion is to approve the proposal for professional service to Wade Trim for topographic survey, construction documents and bidding assistance, renovation of Handy Park tennis courts into pickleball courts not to exceed $35,800, and the money will come from the MEDC grant for park improvements. Any questions? Roll call vote.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Ms. Taylor?
Yes.
Ms. Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Christie, yes. Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
She's there somewhere.
Mr. McCray. I know she's tired, she's getting late.
Mr. McCray?
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Announcements from the board.
To the chair.
Trustee Taylor.
Just a quick one from the Redford Beautification Commission, just to remind everybody that they're having the free tree planting again this spring. Trees are free to residents. If you are interested in getting a tree planted in your easement, you can contact the Redford Township Beautification Commission through redfordtwpbeautification@gmail. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Or Christie.
For some of us, our work is not done tonight. There is an election commission meeting immediately after this meeting, and I invite the public to attend.
Anybody else? Okay, I got just two. One is that the 2024 State of Township address will be on March 21st at 11:30. The program and lunch start at noon. This will be at Redford Union High School. The cost is $25 per ticket. We are also in the search for sponsors for the program as well, or people that want to buy a table. We're always interested in that. So please plan on attending. The other thing I have is that I want to make everybody know that, the library is going through some renovations going down there, and it's starting to really look great. But on February 16th and March the 4th, the library will be closed because they have to close the library because they have to move stuff out of different sections to do different things. So those 2 dates, the library will be closed, and only those 2 dates, so that's so everybody can know that as well. That's all I have. And it's time to go home. Unless there's something other that the board has to discuss, glad to hear no. This meeting's adjourned.